Chapter 144. The players from the City of Dawn were the first to receive a large-scale war mission. This made the players from the human nations very envious. To the players, this kind of mission was no less than some main storyline missions. The rewards were definitely not small. The players from the Black Lava Nation had nothing to say. Ever since they joined the Dawn mercenary team, there were so many missions that they could not finish. The only problem was that the rewards were not small. But the mercenary teams created by the other NPCs did not dare to provoke them. They were on a completely different level. In one sentence, they had silver on their heads. They were no longer afraid of being robbed by the NPCs. It was a pity that they were not in the City of Dawn and could not participate in this war. The players from the Iron Nation were definitely not satisfied, but they did not say anything. They were stubborn and did whatever they wanted. They just waited for the war to start and beat up the Black Lava Nation and the City of Dawn. The stubborn nature of the players was very obvious. Once they joined a camp, it was very difficult to change. It was not only because they had their own guilds and good friends, but also because of their pride. William did not need to prepare much. After giving the order to gather, the next morning, more than 40,000 professional players gathered at the central square. Regardless of whether it was the mercenaries or the players, they were definitely not standing or sitting properly. When they gathered together, it was over. Some players even took the opportunity to fight. As for their strength, most of the players were still at level 13 or 14. Their equipment was still white and blue. Only a small number of players had obtained silver equipment. Gold equipment? That was for the rich. William stood on the high platform and did not say much. He only said 2 words, "Let's go." The 40,000 soldiers followed him to the town of the Winged People. The regular army did not move because the war was not fought for nothing. If the Winged People did not give them enough benefits, there was no point in fighting. They had to deal with the Winged People first before discussing the orcs. The City of Dawn was not too far from the Winged People, but it was very tiring to walk on the narrow mountain road. The army formed a winding line that was 3 to 4 miles long. Many anchors started a live broadcast of this war. The comments were very exaggerated. After all, this was the first large-scale war in the gods. Angry Pig successfully occupied the position next to William because of his connections. With the help of the Lord of the City of Dawn, he became the most popular anchor in the gods. Fortunately, I caught up this time. Otherwise, if the City Lord still didn't show up, I wouldn't be able to keep my position as the host of gods. Angry Piglet followed William while using his consciousness to raise the camera, trying his best to capture the entire team. William nonchalantly glanced at the players behind him. Actually, he was quite nervous. It was not that he was afraid that these players would turn against him. It was just that if they had any ill intentions and wanted to loot his equipment, he would definitely have to retaliate. The moment he retaliated, it was basically a team wipe. Prince William dared to say that if he did not block them in the City of Dawn and kill them until they deleted their accounts, he would write his surname upside down. However, this group of players still had some conscience. They chatted in groups of 3 to 5 and didn't have any intention of killing him. He had brought along 500 elven guards, all of whom were bosses with intermediate bloodline and above. They were all equipped with silver and gold weapons. Moreover, there was Eric, the epic-ranked deputy team leader. William and his companions traveled for a few hours before they finally arrived near the Serafkin town. Or in other words, the entire Serafkin town was built on the peak of a mountain in a dense forest. After level 70, the Serafkin had the ability to fly off the ground. Before that, the Serafkin could temporarily float in the air when they reached level 40. Since they were young, they wouldn't fall to their death. Hence, regardless of whether they were building a town or living alone, they would choose a vantage point that was advantageous to them. When they were nearing the Serafkin town, William heard a commotion in front of them. The eyes of many players lit up. William narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect to encounter the orcs attacking the town. He was curious why the Serafkin didn't send a message to ask for help. In the end, he discovered that he had placed the message scroll in the space ring. There was no signal. 3 legions of orcs. The Serafkin warriors are resisting the orcs on the city walls. They aren't at a disadvantage yet. A guard rushed back and reported the situation. In that case, William turned his head and looked at the excited players. He wanted to say something inspiring. Charge! Orc grandsons, I'm coming! Let's kill them! Lay down your equipment. I'm coming to pick them up. Whoosh! Whoosh! The players became a torrent that bypassed William and his companions. They charged forward from both sides. Chu Liuqiu, Changli Jioga, Xiao Ayan, and the others looked at each other. Then, they glanced at their bewildered team leader. They also charged forward. After all, mission points were the most important. Angry Fatty didn't have time to care about him. The audience was watching the battle, not the attractiveness of the players. The army of players was very long. The people at the back did not know what was happening. They just had to charge forward, hence, William and his companions were bypassed again. The city lord was dumbfounded. He was depressed, but he could only follow the players. He wanted to see what the players could achieve. Gosh. Brothers, charge. I'm surrounded. A dual-wielding warrior charged at the front. He was going to sneak up on the orcs, but he was too excited. After killing an orc, he charged into the middle of the orc army. When a group of tanned, muscular orcs surrounded him, he instantly wailed in despair. Damn, cooperate. Why are you randomly using skills? You've hit me. A player who had lost 20% of his health points by the battle energy / couldn't help but curse. Bang! An unlucky player was killed by a rock thrown by a friendly player. He didn't even have the chance to make a sound before he died, but in this chaotic scene, it kept happening. There was no way to stop it. They're fighting back. The orcs are fighting back. They're getting into formation. The players at the front kept shouting. As the first wave of players was too spread out, they were all killed. Under the command of their commander, the orc army stabilized their morale and started to get into formation. Although the orcs had low intelligence, they were nervous and afraid after being stabbed in the butt. But when they reacted, they realized that the orcs weren't that fierce. Their weapons were so thin that it wouldn't hurt even if they were stabbed. What was there to be afraid of? Then, he turned around and started working furiously. The players were in chaos. The players at the front who couldn't withstand the attack retreated. However, the players at the back did not give them a chance. They had to attack the players at the front even if they wanted to. Even if someone could hear the players at the front shouting that they couldn't withstand the attack, it had nothing to do with them. Kill them. Just kill them. What are you afraid of? If you're so afraid of death, why are you playing the game? Even so, the players at the front could not complain. The shield-bearer orcs had already gotten into formation. They couldn't break through the formation. They were not organized, disciplined, and had no formation. If they attacked, it would be a waste of their lives. Many players didn't dare to revive on the spot after they died. They chose to revive at the commander flag. If the commander flag was there, they would revive there. If the commander flag was gone, the players in this war would be doomed. William saw hundreds and thousands of players revive near the commander flag. He sighed. Although the mission was to die, it wasn't like this. If too many of these players died, it would be a loss. It wouldn't be beneficial to the Iron Nation. He was wearing the Thunder equipment set, but he didn't have any weapons. He didn't intend to use any. He stretched his limbs and used his powerful strength to disperse the players. Until he came to the front of the orc army. He covered 3 meters with each step. 5 meters. 10 meters. He ran faster and faster. Thunder battle energy attached to his body. He transformed into lightning. Boom. A long blue line pierced through the orc army. Everywhere it passed, there were broken limbs. Hundreds of orcs were sent flying into the air. The thousands of players at the front gulped. Piglet's live broadcast was silent. Chapter 145. As a legendary boss, William could easily defeat the middle-level and beginner orc. Why would he need a weapon to defeat them? He must be looking down on Fat Tiger. William only needed to activate his battle energy shield and use his fists to block the attack. The defensive formation of the orc army was useless against him. He was like a Tyrannosaurus in human form, and no one could stop him. The 3 legions of orcs had no lack of powerful generals. One of the epic pale orcs charged at William and slashed with his sword. Before the sword energy reached William, cracks appeared on the ground. His power was terrifying. William dodged to the side. He grabbed the pale orc's arm and flung him. Boom! The orc was embedded into the city wall like a cannonball. William followed closely behind. He punched the orc, who had just regained his senses, and sent him flying back. This punch caused half of the city wall to shake. Die! A group of level 40 orcs slashed at William. Pom, pom, pom. William ignored them. He used his battle energy to disperse the orc's sword energy and reflected the lightning. His body trembled as if he was having a cramp. He danced inexplicably like an NBA ambassador. Chicken, you're too beautiful. He only aimed at his target and punched again and again. Booming sounds reverberated in all directions. When the pale orc was beaten into a pile of meat paste, William turned his head and kicked him. The pale orc retreated again and knocked over a group of orcs. The orcs scattered. William picked up the sword that had fallen to the ground and flung it. A stream of light flashed and pierced through several orcs. A Grandmaster orc's sword energy landed on his head. William grabbed the orc's wrist and stopped the sword energy. He swung the Grandmaster orc and charged into the army again. No one could stop him. An epic ranked orc attacked again and was surrounded by many guru experts. Pom! A blue shockwave with a diameter of 17 meters was released. At that moment, hundreds of orcs were sent flying in all directions. Even in the sky, almost transparent souls dissipated in the air. Corpses kept falling from the sky. It was a shocking scene. It was such a scene. Both the players and the winged people on the city wall widened their eyes. Some of the live streamers were so excited that they couldn't extricate themselves. Looking at the 666 in the lower left corner, they knew that this was the kind of scene that the audience really liked to watch. Touching his sparse hair, Chu Liuqiu sighed, "I could feel how powerful the city lord is when I saw the video. But now that I'm here, I realize that he's freakishly strong." The leader is a legendary boss that is close to the version limit. This kind of combat power is unparalleled. It's definitely not something that can be won with just numbers. Changli Jioga nodded in agreement. As members of the Dawn mercenary team, they naturally hoped that the team leader would become stronger. It was best not to die in the plot, or else it would be a huge loss. Xiao Ayan, who was tall and slender, glanced at the two of them. She drew her sword and said, "If we don't attack now, are we waiting for our leader to help us kill them all? Vice Captain is right. Charge!" A pro player licked his lips, pulled out his sword, and charged. Some of the sorcerers realized what was going on and threw fireballs, ice arrows, and wind blades at the sky, hoping that their skills could float over. There was really no other way. Elementary mages were like little brothers. They couldn't even compare to little brothers. As for whether they would hit their companions, these mages did not care at all. William fought against thousands of enemies alone. He tore apart the formation of the orc army. Tens of thousands of players surrounded him like wasps, furiously releasing their skills. Xiao Ayan was a tycoon. Money was not considered money. She had made a tycoon gold equipment for Changli Jioga, so she made a full set of gold equipment for herself. In short, she was rich, so she could do whatever she wanted. She made use of her equipment and the advantage of her hidden occupation, shield bearer, to take the lead. She was like a silver dragon, holding a gold shield in one hand and a gold weapon in the other. She shone brightly on the battlefield. Chongli Jiogo was the strongest professional in glory. At this moment, he was extraordinary. Although his attributes had not been awakened, he had an epic occupation, so he had an advantage in terms of skills. Between the flashes of his sword, he killed several orcs with explosive power. As for Chu Liuqiu, although he only had half a set of silver equipment and a silver weapon, his skills were top-notch. As long as he was given a chance, he would stab the head, cut the neck, or stab the heart. His movements seemed slow, but he did not waste any extra movement. He would always be able to deal a critical and fatal blow. Sometimes, when he saw that the others were in a deadlock for a long time, he would quickly slip away after killing a orc. His skills were quite good. He had the demeanor of Lord William when he stole kills. With a group of well-equipped professional players and top-notch experts at the front, the army of players was like a hot knife through butter. But William understood that the orcs were a race that picked on the weak. It was already difficult to attack a city. Now that they were being attacked from two sides, they immediately became terrified. One of the orc commanders saw that the situation was not good. He led his soldiers to retreat. But this situation was instantly discovered by the other orcs. The morale of the orc army collapsed as they shouted, "Run!" In an instant, the orcs ran away and were chased by the players. When the orcs retreated into the forest, the players swarmed after them. They could not stop the killing. William did not want to control these crazy players. Strictly obey orders? Wasn't that a dream? It was impossible to make the players obedient. He could only wait for the players to revive near the commander flag after a huge battle. The 3 orc legions had more than 2,000 casualties. Besides, a portion of them were killed by the winged people, a small half of them were killed by William. The rest of the orcs were killed by the players. As the deputy commander, Eric could not help but sigh. The chosen ones are too unruly. Although the mercenaries are very undisciplined, how can they do things like this? They could have annihilated the orc army, but now it has become like this. William smiled but did not say anything. But they have the ability to revive. As long as they practice a few more times, they can become a useful team. The current situation of the players was very simple. They had just entered the game. The old and new members of the various guilds did not have a good understanding of each other. They were far from being able to form a formation and charge. But after a few waves of large-scale casualties, the players would understand the importance of forming a formation. When that time came, William did not need to say anything. They would learn to fight like a regular army. No one was a fool. But without the price of death, the players were very impulsive and easily rash. But they should not expect too much. After all, they would not die. The city gate of the winged people opened. William and the rest led the army in. The leaders and elders of the feather race on the city gate looked at the chosen ones in fear. Some of them were chosen ones who could be resurrected. No one knew what they were thinking. The chosen ones did not arrive at the winged tribe. The Iron Nation, Black Lava Nation, and the City of Dawn were the novice villages for the players. The other neutral tribes were unknown factions that the players had to explore. Many players entered the city and discovered a new world. The buildings of the winged people were very strange. They were almost all embedded in the cliffs of the mountains. The houses seemed to be made of a special kind of white stone. They looked like heavenly palaces. The suspension bridges and chains traversed the half-suspended city. It was a very novel feeling. Some winged people flapped their wings and slowly descended. They were very good-looking, comparable to the elves. "Welcome to the City of Dawn with your reinforcements." William nodded and strode into the city. It was time to discuss the price of inviting him to join the army. Chapter 146. The leader of the winged people, Franst, was a level 68 epic warrior. He was close to the upper limit of the version. He was very powerful. He did not take the 3 orc legions to heart. He did not intend to leave the city. He only wanted to make use of the terrain to force them to retreat. Although the professionals of the winged people were powerful, casualties were inevitable in war. The winged people, who cherished their lives, did not intend to engage in a head-on battle. If they could use arrows, they would rather not use swords. In particular, every winged person had inherited memories. They yearned for the Sky City, and to become the angels of justice and light. Whenever a winged person surpassed level 70, the holy light would descend and bring them to their sacred land. They would receive the training and inheritance of the Sky City to see if they had the chance to become an angel. Franz wanted to quickly advance to the advanced level and pass the position of leader to someone else. Then, he would quickly fly away, but he was wrong. The pale orc Altaic had developed too quickly. Before Franz could leave, the orcs had the intention to kill the winged people. Franz did not want to start a war. Similarly, he did not want his warriors to die. Naturally, he turned his attention to his battle-hungry ally, the Lord of the City of Dawn. Halfway up the mountain, the white and flawless palace was filled with murals of the Sky City. There were also some statues of angels. It was not only beautiful, but it also made many players yearn for it. It was obvious that the players could not enter the Sky City within a short period of time. But many players still had some expectations. For this PY meeting, William not only brought Eric and Knox, but also selected some players. For example, Fatty, who could help him expand his influence, Chu Liuqiu from the Glory Club, Chongli Jioga, and Xiao Ayan. Choosing them would not raise any suspicions. Chu Liuqiu and Xiao Ayan were the top 3 in terms of damage output in the previous battle. Chongli Jioga and Angry Fatty were his old acquaintances. The players were envious and had no other thoughts. Franz invited William to sit down and drink some fruit wine. The others stood behind and observed the surroundings. The leader of the winged people heaved a long sigh. Altaic is ambitious. The battle at the Devil's Den was enough to show his murderous intent towards the City of Dawn. It's not only the Feather Race's honor that Your Highness is here to help me kill the enemy. I'm sure you also want to kill Altaic, right? At this moment, Franz glanced at William as if saying, "Since you want to kill me so much, why don't you go first?" William was overjoyed when the old man called him prince. He was an abandoned prince. He did not have any real power among the Blackleaf Elves. He only had a title, but he had influence among the players. Looking at the expressions of the other players, it was clear that they were gradually taking it seriously. But you always want to play with me without any capital. Do I look like I'm not smart enough? William drank a mouthful of wine and said, "We are allies, but we have to talk openly. Altaic and I have a grudge. But even if I give him a dragon's bile, Altaic will not have the guts to attack the City of Dawn. Even if he has a powerful younger brother, will he dare to come? Furthermore, the regular army of the Dawn Army has experienced a year-long war. They are already tired of it. My mercenaries are the main force. What does the chief intend to do?" The corners of Franz's mouth twitched. He knew that he could not avoid this. So, after seeing William's blinking action, he waved his hand in tacit understanding and ordered his men to retreat. William also waved his hand and asked the players, who did not understand, to leave. Things had developed to this stage. The situation had become ugly. An intense war of words was inevitable. A long time passed. Half an hour later, both of them walked out of the conference hall, their faces red. William inhaled a deep breath of fresh air. He was very happy. He had obtained many good things. Altaic did not start a war for no reason. The crucial point was that the winged people had discovered an orichalcum mine. It was not far from the Heavy Spear tribe. After this news was leaked, Altaic led tens of thousands of troops to seize the mine. He blocked the entrance of the winged people all day long to make them behave. Franz did not have to hide this. This news could not be hidden for long, so it was better to tell William openly. His goal was to take back the orichalcum mine. If he could kill Altaic or his younger brother, Alls, the daily production would be divided equally between 55 and 30. The orichalcum mine was very valuable, but it was too difficult to convert it into money and power. William knew that the winged people were rich. After some coaxing and pestering, he forcefully deducted 50,000 gold coins. 1 month. Within a month, we have to find a way to kill Altaic or his younger brother. Even if we can't kill him, we have to make the Heavy Spear tribe pay the price. William scratched his head. The Heavy Spear tribe had 2 legendary orcs and many epic experts. At the same time, they also had many trolls. They were a strong fighting force. Otherwise, the Heavy Spear tribe did not have a second legendary orc, and Altaic would not have dared to lead his troops to attack the Dawn army. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared. She strode with her long and beautiful legs towards William. Many players could not help but swallow their saliva. Legendary, and it's a female. Gosh, did Prince William have sex with her? Prince William is awesome. William's lips twitched. He wanted to explain that he did not. It was not him. He was not. When the players saw the leader of the winged people address William as Prince William, Fatty and the others decided to address William as Prince William in the future. It would be more dignified. The players did not mind and nodded. After all, in their hearts, William would be their camp boss in the future. They had to address him in a special way to show off. After all, it was too lowly to address him as a dragon slayer. It was meaningless to address him as the City Lord because there were too many City Lords. Now that they could confirm the identity of Prince William, it would be more impressive to address him as Prince William. The Blackleaf Elves were one of the top powers in the legendary continent. How could they underestimate the prince? Now, a female winged person, who was a legendary NPC, had appeared. This attracted the attention of many players. Greetings, Lord of the City of Dawn, Prince William. William looked at the newcomer. This young lady who had an airport runway had a powerful aura. But he was puzzled. Why was it Chien? Isn't she an angel? Oh, Altaic did not have a good life in his previous life. He was always suppressed by the Great Dragon Clan and did not have the chance to invade the winged people. Therefore, Chien did not appear and ascended. William muttered in his heart that there were many fierce people in the southeast corner. But he still nodded and said, Legion Commander? No, I'm temporarily the commander of the Winged People's Legion, Chien replied expressionlessly. Level 68? William pondered for a while and said, Very good. What are your thoughts on attacking the Heavy Spear tribe? Attack him. Chien clenched her small fists. That's it? That's right. Chien paused for a while before she continued. Tomorrow, we'll head to the orichalcum mine. Prince William's chosen ones will attack from the front, while I'll lead the winged people to attack from the side. We'll try to defeat the orc army of 10,000. If Altaic is there, I'll kill him personally. Gosh, boss. William did not say it out loud, but he still nodded and said, All right, we'll do it according to your plan. Chien turned and left, leaving behind the dumbfounded players. Was this a strategy? Was it that simple? Why did it feel like she was sending them to their deaths? William looked at Chien, who did not have a butt, and sighed. As expected of the future battle angel. She's been reckless since young. Chapter 147. As the sun rose from the east, William led the army of players towards the orichalcum mine. The winged people sent 3 legions. They were all middle-level professionals with full sets of silver equipment. They were very powerful. The purpose of this expedition was to take back the orichalcum mine. Then they would use this location to beat up the Heavy Spear tribe. The speed of the army was not slow. When they neared the orichalcum mine, they saw that the forest within a radius of 2 to 3 kilometers had been cleared. The orcs had also used the forest to build simple fortifications to prevent the winged people from counterattacking. This was also Altaic's order. The trees around the mine were cut down not only to build fortifications, but also to prevent the elves from shooting at them from the trees. My lord, the Dawn army has really come. William has led an army of 40 to 50,000 soldiers, a gnoll said timidly. The commander of the army stationed at the orichalcum mine was also a pale orc. He glanced at the gnoll and laughed coldly. Is it the Dawn army or the Dawn mercenary team? Are you blind? My lord, I saw wrongly. The gnoll scout leader trembled as he sprawled on the ground. Get lost. If you make another mistake, I'll kill you. All sent him flying with a kick. Then, he looked at the other 3 Legion commanders. Yesterday's attack on the city was a distraction and a threat. In the end, the 3 idiots from the tribe were all useless. They were defeated by the trash mercenary team. Now, the situation on the east side of the tribe is not good. Therefore, we need more orichalcum to build more powerful armor. The tribe leader will give me 2 more legions as support. I hope that the 3 of you will not disappoint my brother. The 3 legion commanders, 2 epic and 1 grandmaster, were all pale orcs. They nodded in response to Alz's words. Not only were they of the same tribe, but he was also Altaic's younger brother. His power was extraordinary. There were many pale orcs in the heavy spear tribe. After all, the orcs had strong reproductive abilities. Moreover, there were hundreds of thousands of orcs in the heavy spear tribe. Recently, Altaic had given a strict order. The pale orcs could only mate with other pale orcs in an attempt to make the tribe stronger in the future. It had to be said that Altaic not only had the bloodline of the Beastmen hero, but he also had a very long-term vision. If he could really make the pale Beastmen continue to grow, it might not be impossible for the Beastmen of the Second Era to reappear in this remote area. There was only disdain in Altaic's eyes when he faced the former giant dragon clan. Those people wanted to cooperate, but they did not want to give him a high enough position. Thus, he could only choose to reject them. In the end, those people even wanted to annex the Heavy Spear tribe, so the war between the tribes had to start. Altaic paid great attention to the quality of the armor. After some careful exploration, he discovered a mithril mine and an orichalcum mine of the Harpies. He believed that if he could successfully occupy these 2 mineral veins, he would be the king of the east side of the Blackleaf Forest. As the Dawn army approached the orichalcum mine, Altaic, who was wearing golden armor, held 2 swords in his hands. He waved his hand and said, "Prepare for battle. Get those D*MN trolls to come here. As long as they delay the reinforcements, I will kill all the trash from the Dawn mercenary team." Whoa! The bugle horn shook the heavens. The low wall, which was made of wood and stones, was filled with orcs wielding long swords. The archers were at the back, ready to attack. Simple catapults were pushed out, and huge stones were placed beside them. An elfin player climbed up a tree and saw this scene. He was so shocked that he almost fell. Gosh, catapult! Are they so fierce? I even saw some heavy crossbows. Chu Liuqiu was stunned when he discovered that the orcs were using catapults. It's true. It's reasonable. Xiao Ayin glanced at him and said, "Stop your nonsense. Master Chu, your nickname is Chu Liuqiu. Think of a solution." "How can I think of a solution? It depends on Prince William." Chu Liuqiu was not only a glorious captain, but he was also a famous tactical master in the virtual game. It was a pity that he did not have any good ideas. They did not have any. William had ideas. He immediately issued an additional mission. All the players were stunned when they saw the mission information. War of attrition. Brave chosen ones, William Blackleaf knows that you will not die. Please make use of your strengths and deplete at least half of the orc army's arrows and catapult. Mission introduction. I ask His Majesty to die. Mission difficulty. C. Mission reward. 0. Experience. Mission reward. 0. Contribution points. The players were speechless when they saw this new mission. Wasn't the mission introduction given by the mainframe too mischievous? But they secretly sighed. The game was too realistic. The NPCs had started to make use of the players' immortality. Such a situation had already occurred in the Iron Nation, so the players weren't too shocked. No one rejected the mission. Chu Liuqiu was a clever guy. He suddenly thought of a problem. Could they take off their equipment and die? So he went to William's side and said, "Prince William, can I leave my equipment with your bodyguards?" The corners of William's mouth twitched, but he still nodded. Sure, but he could foresee the tragic fate of the players. The NPCs were not stupid. Chu Liuqiu took the equipment and handed it to 500 bodyguards. He planned to go into battle wearing only his indestructible underwear. When the other players saw this, they could not help but give him a thumbs up. "Captain Yo-Yo, you're awesome. Only you can come up with such an idea. Glory is awesome. When the time comes, we'll give you a star recommendation and let you become one of the top 3-star professional players." Chu Liuqiu stroked his sparse hair and laughed. "You're too polite. Give it to my beautiful little Ian. I'm a middle-aged man. Why would I fight for the title of a star professional player?" "You're smart." Little Ian took off her silver equipment and gold weapon. She hugged her breasts in front of her white shirt to prevent the surrounding players from looking at her. As the other players handed over their equipment, the battlefield recorder had to use a quill to write. Otherwise, he would not be able to remember everything. The orc army was confused when they saw this. They were already on the battlefield. What was the meaning of the enemies taking off their equipment? Were they looking down on the orcs? Alls was so angry that his nostrils flared. He decided to teach these fearless mercenaries a lesson. The moment the players randomly picked up stones and branches, they charged. The huge stones on the catapults were like meteors crashing into the battlefield. Rumbling sounds were continuously heard. It was like an earthquake. Thick and long heavy arrows flew across the sky, piercing through 7 or 8 players who were rushing to their death. But as the white light disappeared from the battlefield, new mercenaries kept appearing near the commander's flag and surged into the battlefield. Alls was dumbfounded. The chosen ones? He inhaled a breath of cold air. He suddenly thought of the will of the heavens. "I don't believe that they can keep reviving. Kill them. Slow down the catapults and heavy arrows. When they get close, use your swords to kill them." Alls coldly laughed. "You have your stripping skills, but I have my spear drawing skills." Chapter 148. It was obvious. The players' tricks weren't of much use. Besides the first few waves of attacks, which caused the orcs to throw stones and shoot arrows in anger, the orcs did not cause too much damage. Because the players had taken off their equipment, their combat power was greatly reduced. Even if they got close to the orcs, they were no match for the orcs. As for Chu Liuqiu's tricks, the players did not complain about it. There were 2 battle modes in Gods. They were Battlefield Mode and Normal Mode. When the scale of the battle exceeded 3,000 players, the Battlefield Mode would be automatically activated. The death penalty and drop rate would be halved, and the commander's flag would be revived. The previous deaths did not cause too much damage. If they died 3 times normally, they would lose 1 level. But now, they had to die 6 times to lose 1 level. After the players cursed at the orcs, some of them started to organize effective attacks. As William did not have any instructions for the players, Chu Liuqiu was chosen as the battle commander. The top guilds in the City of Dawn were Glory, Blade, Misty Rain Pavilion, Righteous Sprout, and Natural Days. There were also some elite teams. Chu Liuqiu looked at these guild leaders and small team leaders and said without holding back, "Your 5 guilds have the most people, so split up into 5 lines to attack. Try to break through the encirclement at one point and put the most pressure on these 5 points. As for how you should charge and break through the encirclement, you can arrange it yourselves." The guild leader of Glory was the first to agree. "No problem. Although the more we die, the more rewards we get. Don't let the NPCs look down on the chosen ones. If they really treat us as a suicidal army, we have to fight for our lives." The other guild leaders nodded to show that they understood. Chu Liuqiu pointed at the team leaders and said, "I've heard of the Fierce Blade Alliance, Blood Edge, and the Grand Deity team. I've met you in the previous game. I didn't expect to meet you again in Gods. Moreover, you're in the City of Dawn at the same time. It's fate. I hope we can get along in the future. Although your guilds don't have many members, your strength is extraordinary. I guess you all have silver or even gold weapons. The first two guild leaders nodded. Lucky Dream, who was wearing a full set of gold equipment, twitched his mouth. What was the Grand Deity team? They were a super team with paywalls. Jinwoo, are you looking down on me, Fat Tiger? Lucky Dream glanced at the 20 or so brothers behind him, who were all clad in gold. He was too lazy to say anything. If he did not have a set of gold equipment, he would be too embarrassed to apply to join the Lucky Queen's team. As the leader of the Grand Deity squad, Lucky Dream was naturally the richest among the rich. Now, he was ready to spend more money to buy a dark gold weapon, which was the little orange weapon. One sentence. For a real nouveau riche. To a beginner like William, who was reluctant to use a full set of gold equipment, it was simply trash. That's good. Grand Deity Party will attack one position on their own. Fierce Blade Alliance and Blood Edge will follow Glory Party. Let's try to get some result. Chu Liuxiang knew he had guessed correctly when he saw the other three nod. The tycoons of the Grand Deity team were too arrogant. They were so arrogant that they did not want to team up with anyone else. They preferred to solve everything by themselves. Fierce Blade Alliance and Bloodshed were elite groups that focused on mechanic. Even though they would also spend money, they still respected pro players like him. The Grand Deity team was different. In the previous game, they were a guild formed by a group of tycoons. Some professional players had once belittled them as trash players, saying that they were nothing without equipment. In the end, that professional player was killed more than 100 times by Lucky Dream. Not only did he lose his equipment, but his character also dropped tens of levels in the end. The club sent an apology letter. Only then did Lucky Dream stop the killing order. Since then, that professional player had retired from his professional career. It seemed that he was the father of a member of the Grand Deity team. He was also one of the sponsors of that club. One sentence. In the real world, it was already the year 2333. There were immigrants from Mars and the Moon. The rich were really rich. It was better to provoke a professional player than a tycoon. William looked at the players calmly. It did not take long. The players would then have rules, battle plans, and siege strategies. A smile gradually appeared on the prince's face. The players were not stupid. After experiencing the great wave of virtual reality games, as long as they did not get excited when they first entered the game, as long as they had a united front, any siege and any battle would become very strategic. The army of 40,000 players attacked again. There were 5 long routes. The shield bearers blocked the damage, or at least reduced the lethality of the heavy arrows. The formation was no longer disorderly. Instead, it formed an effective defensive formation. Even if the heavy arrows came, they could only penetrate a few shield bearers before losing their strength. The players behind would not be harmed. Furthermore, 2 elite teams found the right time to attack. For a moment, the orc army was thrown into confusion. But it could not be helped. The city wall was built temporarily, and it was not very tall. As long as they used their hands and feet, they could climb up. They did not even need ladders. Especially since there were many chosen ones, there were many professionals who played as rangers. The sky full of battle energy arrows did not seem to cause much damage, but there were too many of them. Many orcs' battle energy shields were hit. It was too much of a drain, and their battle energy kept decreasing. When All saw this, he did not dare to belittle the orcs. The average strength of the chosen ones was average, but he understood the principle of ants biting an elephant to death. Therefore, he immediately ordered, "Let the experts in the army block the orcs. Don't let them charge up. These chosen ones are useless. The winged people behind them have not attacked yet, and the Lord of the City of Dawn has not attacked yet." Alls would not attack easily. He was waiting for the Lord of the City of Dawn or the experts of the Winged People to attack. It was the same for the other 3 Legion commanders. Angry Fatty did not participate in the battle. He chose a high vantage point and recorded the battle. The siege had lasted for an hour. Countless players had died. Fortunately, everyone knew that they would not lose levels if they did not die 6 times. With the 5 big guilds attacking wildly, Chu Liuqiu, Lucky Emperor's team, and the others had climbed up the city wall many times and caused some damage to the orcs. Although they were still no match for the mid-tier orcs, they still caused more than 1,500 orcs to suffer casualties. Reinforcements. The orc reinforcements are here. Someone saw 2 orc legions rushing over from afar. They were all elite orcs, and their equipment was half blue and half silver. The players gasped in shock. Then, the sound of a drum reverberated through the entire battlefield. The 2 winged armies transformed into a silver flood and surged forward. At the same time, William transformed into a bolt of lightning and traversed the entire battlefield. A punch. The city gate exploded. Chapter 149. Lord of the City of Dawn. Alza's roar was deafening. He could not stop William from smashing the city gate with his fist. Instead, he used his sword to force William to retreat. William retreated tens of meters. He shook his hands, and a clear sword mark appeared on his wristband. His battle energy shield was instantly broken, and the durability of his wristband was greatly reduced. He looked at Alz and raised his eyebrows. He was a level 66 legendary pale orc. With his ancient species and bloodline, as well as his inherited hidden occupation, his attributes were not lower than William's. Many players discovered that the city gate had been smashed open. Just as they were about to charge forward, they came to a sudden halt. D*Mn, another legendary boss. The officials of the gods cannot be trusted. Let's slip away. It's easier to attack the city walls. Some people hurriedly ran away. The aftermath of the battle between the legendary boss was too great. If the 2 of them fought at the city gate, they would die trying to sneak past. A bunch of cowards. Watch me. A ranger aimed at Alz and shot an arrow. Swoosh. The battle energy arrow brushed past Alz by about 10 meters. The situation was very awkward. The ranger disappeared. Do you want to wait to be hammered by me? William ignored the players behind him who were afraid of death. Alz did not care either. So what if the weak arrow hit him? Where's your brother? William did not bring his weapon. He did not want to fight. He only wanted to delay Alz so that the winged army could quickly deal with the orc reinforcements. My brother. Alz scratched his head. He realized that it was not the time to chat. He pointed his sword at William angrily. Since you're here, let's fight. Cut the crap. Don't. William suddenly turned and moved to the side. A black light flashed and stabbed into the city wall. The tail of the arrow buzzed. It almost pierced through William's heart. You don't have any glory. Why are you playing dirty? If not for my broken weapon, I would have beaten you up. If you want to fight one-on-one, I can. Put down your weapon if you dare. William did not have a suitable weapon. If he used an ordinary orange weapon or gold weapon, it would be difficult to fight against Alza's orange weapon. He would have to change to a new weapon every now and then. That would be a huge loss. I don't have glory? Alza's hands trembled in anger. He did not hesitate anymore. His body was like a rocket as he charged towards William. Bam! The instant the 2 of them exchanged blows, the sound of explosions blasted out in all directions. William wielded his black saber and forcefully blocked Alza's attack. Wang Defa, you call this not having a weapon? Alz slashed again, using brute force to push William back. The prince curled his lip. I said that my weapon is broken. It's not like I don't have a second one. Are you stupid? Alz did not waste his breath. He had a bad feeling about this. He had already released the trolls to wipe out the chosen ones on the city wall. The effect was not bad, but the immortality of the Chosen Ones was too overpowered. He could only hack at the Lord of the City of Dawn, who did not have a suitable weapon. He hoped that the reinforcements would be able to fight back. William had no choice. With the Sword of Lightning broken, the lightning attribute could not be unleashed. His battle prowess was reduced by more than 3 levels. In addition, the Pale Orc's HP was extremely high, and its defense wasn't low either. He could barely deal with it. Both of their swords flashed as they slashed at the city gate. The trolls who passed by pretended not to see them. William used all his strength to kick Alls to the city wall. Just as he was about to approach, he was forced back by another slash. Golden battle energy surged towards him. Even he did not want his face to be slashed. His life was not a problem. His appearance was the most important. Alls had the metal attribute battle energy. Not only was the battle energy hard, but it could also increase the sharpness of his weapon. The metal attribute battle energy had a perverse effect. It could increase the defense of the battle energy shield. Although every type of Do Chi had different special effects, the only ones that increased defense were the metal and earth attribute. If William encountered a boss with these 2 attributes, he would not want to attack. The enemy was like a tortoise shell, and it was difficult to attack. In particular, because of his weapon, his lightning battle energy was completely suppressed by the metal attribute battle energy. He could not use his bow and arrow skills, and the soul skills that were too low level were useless, so, with a conspiratorial air, he went to paddle. Some players seemed to have discovered a problem when they saw this. It was the black saber in William's hand. Not only was it extremely long, but it was also very wide. It required both hands to hold it tightly. It was not a very convenient weapon. In addition, the black flames that were released from the saber made the players understand a problem. Professionals who activated their attributes needed weapons of similar attributes to unleash their strongest combat power. Otherwise, it would be difficult for a legendary boss like the Lord of the City of Dawn to unleash his full strength. It was the same for the players. The performance of the Serpent Army was not outstanding, but the Serpent Army was doing well. Xian was wearing a set of silver armor. Her dazzling sword energy was constantly released. Every time she swung her sword, she could clear a path of blood. She led her personal guards and charged straight into the orc army like a sharp knife. Suddenly, a silver light appeared in the dark mass of orcs. One of them was an epic-ranked orc. He was carrying 2 hammers and was about to smash his face. In the end, the orc managed to dodge several sword energy attacks. Before the orc could react, the orc attacked his face and slashed his neck. He died a horrible death. Chu Liuqiu watched the scene leisurely and pondered. If beheading and slashing the neck could cause a fatal blow and kill a boss, could it be the same for the players? But the boss has too many attributes. I have to be accurate, and the power of my skills has to be strong. Otherwise, it will be difficult to achieve this. An orc saw that Chu Liuqiu was not moving and suddenly charged forward. Chu Liuqiu spun and leaped, stabbing his sword into the orc's eye again. No, I can deal with low-level orcs. But the orcs with high bloodlines move too fast. It's difficult for me to attack with such accuracy. Chu Liuqiu continued to talk to himself. His teammates heard him but did not think much of it. They all thought that the team leader was enlightened again. The brutal massacre did not last for long. Another Legion commander roared, wanting to retreat. This situation naturally reached All's ears. He knew that he could not defend this place. He waved his sword a few times to avoid William's retreat. He shouted for a retreat and fled without looking back. The orc army abandoned the city and fled. The slower orcs weren't killed. They were captured and taken as captives to continue with their mining. A mediocre siege battle had ended. William and Xian did not choose to pursue. This place was very close to the Heavy Spear tribe. It was easy to be ambushed. Killing was not the most important thing. The problem now was how to defend the Orichalcum mine. Xian walked over, covered in orc blood. She saw that William did not even lose a single hair. She could not be bothered to look at him. She strode into the small wooden wall. Tisk tsk. Prince William is despised. Isn't that right? Sister Xian is very arrogant. She's not well informed. After all, the news of Prince William defeating 20 execution team members has not spread far. Otherwise, this winged girl would definitely lick the city lord's boot. William walked over. He did not usually compete with female animals. Only incompetent men would do that. A real man should be a real man. So he said softly, "Since we've conquered the Orichalcum mine, what should we do next?" "Defend this place. I believe that the orc army will return." Xian looked at the broken limbs everywhere and frowned. "Bury all these corpses and reinforce the city walls. Inform the tribe leader to make a new city gate. Get the mages to enchant it and send it over immediately." "Yes, my lady." The winged soldiers started to clean up the corpses. When the players saw this scene, they wondered if they could trigger a mission. But there was nothing. William narrowed his eyes. "The map has expanded again. Killing alls was a wrong decision. Altaic will be furious and start a war. I'm not interested in starting a war. This place is a good place to train the soldiers. I don't have to worry about the players not having missions. As for the Orichalcum mine, do I care?" His Royal Highness glanced at the proud little sister Xian and chuckled. His appetite was far from that small. Chapter 150. He only needed to control the overall situation and prevent the players from overturning the chessboard or escaping from it. He could not be bothered with the chess pieces. When William returned to the City of Dawn, the war between the Iron Nation and the Black Lava Nation was about to start. "I know what to do. It's just that the masters are unhappy. They can forge middle-level weapons, but they have to lower their level. They are heartbroken." Odom was also a grandmaster blacksmith. He had the same thoughts as the other blacksmith. In the conference hall, they were not like the small mermen, who only knew how to eat. If they saw cute goblins, they would beat them up. After all, these goblins had a lot of gold and silver coins on them. Not only would goblins rob rangers, but they would also attack merchants that passed by in an organized and disciplined fashion. Altaic had no choice. The Heavy Spear tribe did not want to ally with the tribes in the east, so he could not attack this place with his full force. As expected of my little Chimey. She has long legs, big breasts, and fierce maneuvers. Although she is a shield warrior, she has better endurance and can deal more damage. But William had deployed the Glory Legion to be stationed here. He had also asked the winged people to send some professionals to replenish the army. The Orichalcum mine was not the only mission that could be completed. There were also many missions in the City of Dawn. Moreover, there were many monsters at the bottom of the cliff. Among them, the small mermen were killed every day. It had to be mentioned. There was no need to go into details about the ranking competition between the players. On the day the mission ended, he had to provide the players with sufficient missions. These kinds of business missions were also very important. So, for a moment, they actually had the intention to compete with the Glory Club. The failure of the execution team had caused great losses to the Iron Nation. They did not continue with the execution mission. William knew that Odom was complaining. He looked at the map and frowned. Have the equipment for the Dragon's Blood Warriors been completed? Including the 2 legions of the Winged People, there were 3 regular legions, and tens of thousands of immortal chosen ones. Altaic launched an attack and killed more than 3,000 orcs. He realized that it was not effective, so he retreated with his soldiers. But with the suppression of the regular legions and the help of the player army, the nobles could not do much. The conflicts between the scouts at the border became more frequent. The scale of the battles was also increasing. William had long abandoned the low-level NPC ranking. It was the key to William's next move. But anyone with a discerning eye knew. Since they ordered it, we'll sell it. Although it's a bit wasteful, we can't let go of the money. All sorts of small teams ambushed the transport teams all day, but they were still able to steal quite a lot. Altaic was too lazy to continue attacking the orichalcum vein. He might as well just steal the ready-made orichalcum. The battle to defend the orichalcum mine lasted for half a month before finally coming to an end. On the 16th day, the one with the highest output was Shao Ian. Chongli Jioga was only ranked third. The little merman's bones could be ground into powder, and with some dietary supplements, it could be used as food to feed warhorses or magical beasts. Yes, it's all done. When 300 people work together, they'll be invincible. Even I can't block the joint attack of a few dozen people. Odom nodded with lingering fear. However, some of the assassin players started to take on the thief profession as a part-time job, specifically targeting players who didn't return home for a long time and stealing from their homes. The shipyard was not the most secure place in the City of Dawn. On the 7th day, the largest siege took place. The Heavy Spear clan sent an army of 40,000 orcs. The patrolling guards had a headache over this. They even issued many missions to capture thieves. Many players found it hard to imagine how the City of Dawn could have such a huge super shipyard, but this situation was what William wanted. Because the players could accept various escort missions or transport missions, the number of missions in the City of Dawn gradually increased and became richer. There were all sorts of missions, and it would only become more interesting for the players. Gerda Nassis kept pressuring the nobles within the duchy. He even caused some rebellions. It was a pity that the guards of the shipyard were very strict. They did not allow anyone to enter easily. This made some players itch. Some of them tried to barge in, but they were mercilessly shot to death by the guards, regardless of whether they were members of the Dawn mercenary team. The two legendary pale orcs, Altaic and Alls, appeared at the same time. There were many players who did not like to fight. After returning to the City of Dawn, they spent all day decorating their houses. They were not that interested in fighting. During this period, the orc army would come to attack every day. The city walls were constantly reinforced to deal with more attack. The City of Dawn provided housing for the players. Many players were overjoyed. If not, they would not have enough space to store their large bags of materials and equipment. Pay-to-win bosses and professional players. I can't compete with them. The ranking of the Grand Deity team was not low. It was not enough to join this team just by pay-to-win. Even if their skills were not top-notch, they had to be second-class. The shipyard of the City of Dawn had long been excavated by the players. Lucky Dream, who was ranked second in damage output, was very depressed. He had consumed all sorts of potions and used various tools on the battlefield, but he had not achieved the highest damage output. He was not satisfied. Hence, the Heavy Spear clan could not be easily defeated. The best way was to continue providing experience and missions to the players under him. Fortunately, he had defeated Chongli Jioga, who possessed an epic secret manual. In addition, the first place was a woman. Hence, he was not that resentful. However, even if the Heavy Spear clan could not obtain the orichalcum mine, they would not allow the winged people to mine in peace. The professional players had yet to show their strength. When the league tournament started, the equipment, skills, and secret manuals would be released. In his heart, he could only curse the Lord of the City of Dawn for being a despicable person. How could he cooperate with the winged people to share the orichalcum mine? All of them are gold-colored equipment made from the scales of the fire dragon. Dark gold weapons. In addition, they are fire element warriors. Naturally, they are very powerful. William did not intend to use the regular army in the next main plot mission. But the 300 Dragons Blood Warriors were a crucial chess piece. William and Odom chatted for a while longer before they headed to the southern port. William chose to leave. 10 to 20,000 players left with him. Odom looked at William, who was looking at the map. He suddenly sighed. These chosen ones are very rich. They ordered high-end weapons for beginner professionals in the blacksmith workshop. They are incomparably rich. Dark gold? William's heart skipped a beat. This was too much. He knew that only the Grand Deity team could do such a thing. I have to look further, William pondered. There were not many combat missions in the City of Dawn. Chapter 151. Spring was the rainy season in the southeast region. William rode Big Bear to the beach when it started raining. Some players who were fishing at the beach saw him but did not come over to greet him. Instead, they looked at the sea excitedly. It was easier to get hooked when it was raining. To the anglers, there was nothing more exciting than catching a fish. There were only so many fish in the real world. Real anglers were already sick of it. Only the strange fish in the game could pique their curiosity. The lifestyle players or semi-lifestyle players of gods entered this game because of their strange hobbies. Not only could the delicious fish satisfy the players' taste buds, but many sea creatures had magic in their bodies. Eating them could increase experience. If they were lucky enough to catch a beginner magical beast, it would be a huge gain. William had long known about this. The magic in the sea was denser, far more abundant than the magic on the continent. Some fish that were tens of centimeters long could be magical beasts, but their combat power was very low, even lower than that of small mermen. Even if they were not magical beasts, the fish often had a lot of magic in their bodies. This was good for both players and NPCs. This was the key reason why William strongly wanted to develop the sea. In his previous life, there were many anglers who started fishing by the lake. They went to the center of the lake, to the seaside, or followed the boat to the sea to fish. The sea was mysterious. These 4 simple words filled countless players with endless curiosity. If the main plot of the game was inland, then the side plot of the game was the endless sea. Gods never used the main plot to lock the players. In other words, as long as it was a virtual game, it would not use the main plot to lock the players. As long as the players were willing to take risks, they could go and adventure everywhere. Even in the endless sea, they could obtain unimaginable rewards. The freedom of this game was like another world. It never said that the players had to follow the main plot. That would only make the game with more freedom suck away the players' popularity. The City of Dawn wants to develop the sea in advance. The prerequisite is to have a ship that can travel far. The mysterious Atlantis, the Mermaid Empire, the 7 sea kingdoms, countless treasures, magic mines. William looked at the dozens of fishing ships in the distance. This was not far enough. Only a gold-quality warship could travel far. Many professionals were not strong enough and did not have the ability to go deep into the sea. He came to the shipyard and nodded to some guards. Then he walked into the huge shipyard and looked at his Dawn warship. For a moment, the city lord's imagination ran wild, and a magnificent ambition kept spreading in his heart. William looked up and saw Andrew on the deck. The shipbuilding master was too lazy to wear a magic robe. He only wore a simple white shirt. He was inspecting the overall structure of the warship, praying that he could make it perfect. He did not want any flaws. To the elves, rigor was comparable to elegance and beauty. Andrew! Who? Andrew turned around and discovered that William had arrived. He hurriedly patted his chest and bowed. I didn't know that my lord had arrived. William nimbly climbed onto the deck and asked with a smile, "How's the keel now?" I underestimated the difficulty of forming dragon bones. Ever since I added mithril, the dragon bone's toughness and mana absorption rate are no longer a problem. It can also release dragon might in the ocean. It's not hard enough. Please give me some time. Andrew shook his head. This epic warship was just short of the keel. He also hoped that the warship could go out to sea, but he wanted to make the warship more perfect. William smiled. What if we have enough orichalcum? Orichalcum? Andrew gulped. He could not help but ask, did you find another orichalcum mine? It's the winged people. But we can share 30% of the orichalcum. I can let you use the orichalcum first. Thank you, Lord, for your special treatment. Andrew did not want to be polite. He would not give away the orichalcum. If there was enough orichalcum, not only would the keel become harder, the entire warship would become indestructible, but the prerequisite was that there was a lot of it and enough mages to enchant it. William had the same thought. He narrowed his eyes. In this world, besides himself, no one knew why there were so many rare mineral veins here. If you want to know why there are so many magic mines, why don't you ask why the gods died here? William was too lazy to complain. In his previous life, this was a beginner's village for the players. But in the later stages of the game, it was called the battlefield of the gods. This was because the remains of many gods were buried underground, and it was the mana emitted by those remains that formed so many mana mines. In the later stages of the game, this place became a battleground for NPCs and players. Everyone wanted to get the remains of the gods, as well as various weapons and equipment. But don't even think about it in this life. William was not worried that this matter would be exposed. Back then, it was because two sages were fighting that they tore open the surface of the ground. That was how the battlefield of the gods appeared. Now, he wanted to build the entire city of Dawn on these ruins. He would not leave anything for others. What if the two sages wanted to fight and passed by him? So be it. What else can I do? I'm helpless. But Moses is not dead. If he was still in the city of Dawn, he might be able to hold on. Actually, there's nothing much in the battlefield of the gods. It's just the remains of some gods. As for the divine weapons and legendary weapons, they have lost their spirituality. I'm a lord. The mines are the most important. What use do I have for the remains of the gods? William thought to himself, but who knew what he was plotting? Ever since he transmigrated to the game world, he had been advancing step by step. His vision was so far-sighted that it made one's hair stand on end. He had started planning a version in advance, and there were no major loopholes. If he could proceed according to his plan after the war started, he would definitely be able to defend the City of Dawn when the Darkness invasion came. But if I start version 1.0 in advance, I don't know how big the butterfly effect will be. William stroked the rudder that was wrapped in dragon's skin. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He got up and left. He rowed Big Bear to the port. When the players saw William, they patted their chests and said, "Greetings, Prince William. Rise." William had never denied his identity as a prince. He smiled at the players in a friendly manner and called the guards over for a chat. There was no purpose. He just wanted to increase their affinity and loyalty. As a lord, he did not want to take care of everything, but he wanted every soldier to feel the attention of the Lord. He wanted them to fight to the death for him. This was his persona. Chapter 152. Another 15 days passed. On the 39th day of the open beta, the Battle of the Rhine River erupted. The Iron Nation's lineup was dazzling. Their commander, Kaner, personally commanded them. The 4 commanders were all epic experts of civilian origin. Not only were they powerful, but their fighting spirit was also many times stronger than some of the nobles. They were soldiers who had climbed their way up through the ranks with their strength and military achievements. Gerda Nassis gave them a chance. The 4 commanders chose to take their glory or return their lives to Gerda. The king of the Black Lava Nation, Nedric Blackrock, swept away all obstacles. All the nobles in the nation surrendered to him. He finally had the right to wear the crown. He did not hand over the commanding authority to outsiders. Instead, he handed over all the military authority to Violent Dragon, who was stationed at the border. He also let the royal swordsmanship teacher, Sword Sage Baptiste, follow the army into battle. In just one day, both sides lost 2 vanguard legions. More than 13,000 corpses floated south along the river. After meeting with the Rainbow River, they flowed east into the sea. On this day, the Black Lava Nation paid the price of Sword Sage Baptiste's right arm. They killed 2 of the Iron Nation's commanders and successfully took control of the Rhine Bridge. The players from both sides did not participate in the battle. The nation did not allow them to participate. On the narrow Rhine bridge, the weak chosen ones did not deserve to participate. Even the weaker legions did not have the chance to participate. The legions that participated in the battle were all intermediate professionals who had gone through countless battles. They were extremely powerful. The players on the Gods Forum were discussing. They did not participate in the battle, but many followed. There were also live broadcasters. There were 2 legendary NPCs and 13 epic NPCs on the battlefield. The battle was far more tragic than the players had imagined. The Rhine River was dyed red. Fresh blood soaked the bridge. Broken limbs were everywhere. It was not a battle. It was more like purgatory. The soldiers could only step on the corpses of their fallen comrades and charge forward. They could not do anything else. Forward. 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 Wherever the flag pointed, the blade pointed. The players then realized that when the NPCs fought for their beliefs, glory, and the king, they would have a strong will and combat power. Every soldier was not afraid of death, and every soldier died a worthy death. They unsheathed their swords. Shout. Roar. He would not retreat no matter what. Just for that 1 inch of the bridge. Just for the sake of taking a step forward. Just for the sake of victory. There was never justice or evil in a real war. There was only the will of the king and the flag that was raised time and time again. Winner takes all. The loser is the bandit. This was war. The war of words on the forum suddenly lessened. The Chinese forum was split into 3 sections: Dawn, Steel, and Black Lava. Every post on the forum was either cursing or cursing. Almost all of them had become tactical debate. Many players let their imaginations run wild, listing classic battles in ancient history in an attempt to present them to the NPCs. Unfortunately, they could not get a word in edgewise. Even if they forced these tactics out, no one would care. Besides discussing tactics, the players of the City of Dawn were also curious about when the Dawn mercenary team would set off, because no warmonger was willing to miss out on this war. Rhine Ferry. Violent Dragon sat on a big rock. He looked at the workers who were building the fortifications. He was in a daze. He was scolded. He was cursed by the elders of the clan. He could even feel the spittle in the magic scroll, because his talented nephew, who had the potential to inherit the title of Marquis, had died. Not even his corpse was left behind. He did not explain because he was the one who gave the order. It was necessary to push all the obstructing corpses into the Rhine River. The march of the army could not be stopped by the corpses of their comrades. The commander of the Iron Nation had also given the same order. The corpses flowed into the river. They could not be found. Violent Dragon wanted to laugh at the current system of the Iron Nation. Overthrow the nobles? For freedom? Could it be that freedom was a reason to start a war? What did the freedom of the Iron Nation have to do with the Black Lava Nation? So what if they are nobles? I am a noble. My nephew is also a noble. I have killed 1,532 nobles. Violent Dragon's eyes were red. He clenched his fists tightly. They're all young knights, barons, and viscounts. Maybe they're here to gild, maybe they're here to earn merits, or maybe they just want to move up their ranks. But they didn't take a step back. They're worthy of the word nobles. Violent Dragon lifted his head. He could not say anything. He was a man in the eyes of others. He was a terrible man. He was a commander who was never afraid. He could not cry. He still remembered. When he had gathered the legions, he had not said which legion would be the first to charge. But the legion with the most nobles. The Violent Dragon Legion that belonged to him. All the soldiers strode out almost immediately. They raised their weapons proudly and walked at the front. They swaggered around to show off their strength. They did not stand on ceremony and showed off their excellent equipment. They asked the other 3 legions to retreat. Maybe they did it for military achievement. Maybe they did it for their homes. Maybe they did it for their titles. But Violent Dragon understood. The annihilation of the violent Dragon Legion was because of him. There was no Legion commander who did not want to keep his Legion. There was no Legion commander who did not like his soldiers, but every soldier in the violent Dragon Legion knew that dying in battle was not scary. What was scary was retreating. What was scary was not drawing their swords against the enemy. What was even more scary was that the lowly commoners would laugh at the noble soldiers. They were afraid that the other nobles would laugh at their Legion commander and say that the violent Dragon Legion was a bunch of cowards. Violent Dragon did not find any corpses from his Legion. He could only use his hands to carve the glory badges. He hoped that they would be delivered to the nobles after the war. These were the things that the nobles had earned with their lives. This was their belief and glory. If he died in battle, it would be up to the next commander to do it himself. If the next commander died, the king would personally deliver the badges to them. Violent Dragon slowly stood up. The top expert of the Iron Nation, Sword Sage Baptiste, had lost his right arm. His combat power had been halved. If there were no accidents, he would not be fighting with the army for the time being. There were more top experts in the Iron Nation. It would be harder to fight in the future. He slowly turned his gaze to the south. He received news. The Lord of the City of Dawn would come in the name of the mercenary team leader to help. At the same time, there were also over 60,000 Chosen Ones mercenaries. Violent Dragon did not think highly of those Heaven's Chosen Ones who only had beginner-level combat power. Similarly, with 100 beginner-level soldiers, as long as he trained them properly, they would be able to kill 100 Heaven's Chosen Ones multiple times without suffering any injuries. He was very curious about what miracle William could perform to make the Chosen Ones so powerful. Because Violent Dragon understood that in the face of a true elite legion, the Chosen Ones would not be able to withstand a single blow. Violent Dragon looked at his boxing gloves that were full of knife marks. Suddenly, he laughed. He muttered, "I wonder if the swords of the Iron Nation experts are sharper or if my fists are harder?" There was no justice or evil in war. Everything was the will of the king and the direction of the flag. The winner was king and the loser was a bandit. Chapter 153. An Expedition. 20,000 players from the City of Dawn decided to follow William to the battlefield. As for the remaining 30,000 players, some of them were reluctant to leave the City of Dawn and kill the orcs. Many of them liked to stay in the City of Dawn and look at the ladies. The main storyline was useless. William issued a main storyline mission to the players based on the mission he had received. War of the City of Dawn. In this war without justice or evil, the Dawn mercenary team will assist the Black Lava Nation in attacking the Iron Nation. The winner will be the king, and the loser will be the bandit. We will kill our way to the battlefield and conquer the Iron Nation within a year. Mission Level Mission Introduction. War is not a suicide mission. The NPCs will level up by killing you. Damage Reward. The top 1,000 players will receive rich rewards. The first player will receive a middle-level epic weapon. Experience Reward. Based on the damage output leaderboard, once a day contribution point reward. Based on the damage output leaderboard, once a day employment reward. During the war, each player can receive 8 silver coins. Mission Failure. The final reward will be reduced by 50%. The main storyline mission of Gods is very long. Every day, the number of days in the game, there will be experience rewards and contribution points. The players will be able to level up and use contribution points to exchange for equipment. The main storyline mission of the Iron Nation is similar to mine. There are damage output rewards, but it's just a dark gold weapon. It's too stingy. Contribution points are not that valuable. Of course, William would not forget about the faction affinity, but these were in the final reward. As for the friendship, please throw money at me. The expeditionary army on the grass plains was like a long black dragon. The players looked around. This was their first safe journey. Otherwise, they would have to follow the merchant team to the human nations. A player glanced at the marks on the river and could not help but say hatefully, "These small mermen deserve to die." They ran away when they saw that there were so many of us. I have to say that I have the urge to lead a large army to destroy the small mermen. It's a pity that a high-level boss like Prince William is not interested in bullying the small mermen. The other players expressed their agreement. There were many tribes, races, magical beasts, and wild beasts on the grass plains below the City of Dawn. They often came out to do missions. The players were not afraid of other enemies, but they were afraid of the small mermen. Regardless of whether it was an independent player, a party of a dozen or so players, or even some small parties, as long as they felt that something was amiss, they could only run. Otherwise, if thousands of little fishmen suddenly charged at them, they could only die. After all, too many players had died under the little fishmen's pitchforks. William could hear the players' discussions. He wanted to say that in a year's time, the number of newbie corpses that had died under the small mermen's pitchforks would be enough to circle the southeast region twice. The Rhine River Bridge was 235 meters long and 24 meters wide. It had been broken 3 times. The last time it was built was 40 years ago during the peacetime to facilitate the trade between the two countries. But in times of war, this place would be a crucial checkpoint. Ever since the Black Lava Dukedom took control of the Rhine River Bridge, they had invested a lot of manpower and resources to build fortifications on the opposite side of the bridge. It was not that the Iron Nation could not cross the river by boat from the narrower part of the river. However, it would not be of any use to attack the Black Rock Fortress. Every few hundred meters between the two countries, there would be a small team of 5 scouts monitoring the movements on the riverbank. The scouts on both sides of the river could easily see each other. They would sit down to rest and eat together. They could even use water as a substitute for wine to toast the enemies opposite them. But when they met each other, they would not be holding a wine cup in their hand. Instead, they would be holding a sword. Now, the scouts that were placed here did not have to worry about being bribed. They were all nobles with families and businesses. They would definitely not give the enemies a chance to build a pontoon bridge. When William arrived with 20,000 players, Lautner and the others also brought 40,000 players from the Black Lava Dukedom to meet up. The army of 60,000 players did not have a terrifying aura. It only gave people a feeling that they were bloated. Of course, besides the Dawn mercenary team, there were also some mercenary teams formed by NPCs. More than 30 mercenary teams gathered together, and there were more than 8,000 people. Both sides sized each other up and did not gather together. At this time, on both sides of the bridge across the river, 4 simple black rock towers had been built. Some mages were continuously enchanting the towers. And on the opposite side of the river, there were 50,000 slaves who were withstanding the fatal arrows to build the wall. But they did not suffer much, as there were still 4 legions in front of the slaves who were obstructing the enemies and blocking the damage. There were also 2 legions on both sides to prevent sneak attacks from the Iron Nation. The Black Lava Dukedom had less than 20 legions. In addition to the more than 5,000 soldiers who had been killed, they had invested almost half of their forces. Carts after carts of black rocks, armor, arrows, catapults, and all sorts of other supplies were sent over. Knights on warhorses rode across the bridge, indicating that a large-scale war between the two countries was about to break out. The players of the City of Dawn who had just arrived were all shocked by the construction speed of the Black Lava Dukedom. It has only been 2 days, and the fortifications have already been built? Take a look at the forum. That's a defensive wall made of flesh and blood. More than 20,000 slaves have died here. Didn't you see the corpses on the river when you crossed the bridge? A player explained with a hint of sorrow. Many players of the City of Dawn did not know what to say. They looked at the slaves whose eyes were filled with despair. Many of them did not even have shoes. They could only walk on the hard ground with their bloody feet. But other than watching and throwing food to the slaves, the players could not provide any help. If the slaves wanted to escape, the guards would kill them without hesitation. Then, they would carry the bloody heads and smash them on the bodies of the slaves who were squatting on the ground. Despair, helplessness, fear, silence, this was the aristocratic system that the players saw. The players wanted to step forward to stop them, but the elfin guards stretched out their hands to stop them. A player shouted and wanted to go to the Iron Nation, but the guards did not stop him. Even when he tore down the symbol of the City of Dawn and led a group of people away, nobody stopped him. William looked at all of this expressionlessly. There was not a single ripple in his heart. It was as if everything was fleeting. Because he knew. War was cruel. Victory in war was forged with flesh and blood. Glory only belonged to the living and dead warriors. It had nothing to do with the slaves. But this was reality. This was the system of gods, and it was a game that was closer to the real world, of course. To allow the majority of players to get used to it, many disgusting wounds were unavoidably changed. Some people could even produce green blood. Violent Dragon rode his horse and rushed over. He looked at the densely packed army of players. Not only were there arguments, but there were also swords being drawn. Some people even swam across the shore to defect to the enemy. He could not help but frown. "Do you need my help?" "No need. Just provide food. My mercenaries are all tough men. It's normal for them to quarrel. I don't need to provide tents." William waved his hand nonchalantly. Violent Dragon's eyes lit up. The resources of the Black Lava Nation were running at full capacity, but there were not enough tents. He nodded. "That's much simpler. You can sit anywhere you want. 2 meals a day." The quarreling players were dumbfounded. They saw that the other mercenaries and regular soldiers had already entered the warm and comfortable tents. But could they only sit on the grass? William did not say much. He just led a group of guards and accompanied the players. They shared blessings. They shared hardship. Those who retreated were allowed to leave. This war had just begun. Chapter 154. The players of the Dawn mercenary team did not leave the team en masse. Only a few hundred hot-tempered and impatient players chose to leave. They wanted to fight for the freedom of the Iron Nation. The City of Dawn was the reason why the players did not start a civil war. In the eyes of the players, William was a compassionate half-elf lord. There were no slaves in the City of Dawn. The commoners did not have to worry about food and clothing. Their happiness index was much higher than that of the 2 human nations. This meant that William was a good lord. They were now mercenaries. There was no need to leave the Dawn mercenary team for the sake of the aristocratic system of the Black Lava Nation. It was not worth it. The Iron Nation claimed that it was for freedom. But out of the hundreds of thousands of slaves in the Iron Nation, only 20 to 30,000 were pardoned and became commoners. The players were not fools. Dark Feather Huashin, a retired professional player, had posted a discussion post. Why did an old king who had adapted to the aristocratic system suddenly sing for freedom? The content of the post was valuable. It felt like a conspiracy. Dark Feather Huashin clearly stated that the old king was just a puppet. Otherwise, there would not have been such a drastic change. Why did he not pardon all the slaves? He used various crimes to control the slaves and make them do hard labor. Did he think that everyone was a fool? Dark Feather Huashin also said the most important sentence. Freedom. It is often a false flag of those in power. Look at history. There are countless conspirators who used the horn of freedom to start a war. The players of the City of Dawn and the Black Lava Nation were very supportive. But the players of the Iron Nation said that even if there was a conspiracy, what could they do? They had seen the illustration of the open beta. There was someone controlling the Iron Throne. Fighting for freedom and changing the disgusting aristocratic system was done with good intentions. There was nothing wrong with it. Of course, it was inevitable that people would investigate this. Some players even dug out the hidden organization of the Freedom Alliance. It seemed that they had spread throughout the entire Iron Nation. For a moment, the voices of the players of the Iron Nation became louder and louder. They even believed that the leader of the hidden organization was the ruthless man behind the throne. The discussion on the forum was leaning towards the Iron Nation. More and more new players joined the Iron Nation. There were hundreds of thousands of players fighting for the Iron Nation. Without the interference of other missions, there would be 80 to 90,000 players fighting for the Iron Nation. As time passed, the number would increase. William was invited to the front-line war conference room. Pushing open the curtain, he only saw 3 people. Rampaging Dragon was not sitting in the main seat. Instead, he was standing beside another young man. He was no longer the commander of the army. Although it wasn't a good idea to change the commander at the last minute, he was still the commander of the army. However, Violent Dragon was more skilled in charging battles. Back then, the Battle of the Rhine River was entrusted to him because he was familiar with the borders, and the battle environment was not complicated. Of course, this was not a problem. Now that there was a war going on in the entire nation, the old fellows from the Black Lava Dukedom would naturally appear. Marquis Sauls was the father-in-law of King Nedric. This was an old man with a master bloodline. He was 126 years old, and his life had reached the end of its tether. Due to the fact that he had spent most of his early life in war, he had suffered countless internal injuries of various sizes, causing him to be stuck at the intermediate level. As for him, although he had reached level 79, he hadn't broken through to the advanced level. At most, he had gained some attributes and a bloodline boost. However, in his previous life, Marquis Sauls single-handedly dragged the Black Lava Nation out for 11 months and 13 days. The difficulty was self-evident. However, William did not have much confidence in this old fellow who was good at defending but not good at attacking. Because the Black Lava Nation had been getting beaten up for hundreds of years, now that the Black Lava Nation had the upper hand in the short term, it was difficult for them to attack. They preferred to be beaten up passively. Otherwise, they would not have immediately built a wall. It seems like I'm advancing step by step, but if I can't defeat the Iron Nation in a year... No. If I can't defeat the Iron Nation in a short period of time, I'll suffer a huge loss. If this drags on, when the Darkness Invasion arrives, everyone will be finished. William wanted to shorten the duration of the war and seize the time to develop. Otherwise, if the City of Dawn relied on its geographical advantage and did not have enough people to defend, it would not be able to withstand the final attack of the Darkness Invasion. Then, he glanced at another young man who was in his 20s. He was the newly promoted Earl of the Black Lava Nation, Diablo, who had a legendary bloodline. He was a level 65 warrior and had 2 legendary hidden occupations. But this was not the most important thing. His nickname was the War Gang Leader. While William was sizing them up, they were also looking at the young lord of the City of Dawn. They attached great importance to this powerful gnome that controlled a large force behind her. Marquis Sauls smiled at William politely and said, "Since the leader of the City of Dawn is here, let's begin the meeting." "Marquis Sauls, do you intend to attack?" William went straight to the point. Saul's expression did not change, but he felt a stabbing pain in his heart. In the southeastern region, besides the City of Dawn, which had the geographical advantage, the Iron Nation's Rhine City also had the geographical advantage. Only the 3 fortresses of the 3 nations could be attacked. They could not go around the fortresses in front of them. If they wanted to attack the fortresses, they could only rely on their own strength. There was no shortcut. More importantly, the Iron Nation had a lot of legions. Even though they had lost 4 legions in the dragon-slaying battle and the Rhine River battle, they still had 27 regular legions. In addition to the mercenaries and chosen ones, they had 160,000 to 170,000 soldiers. The total military strength of the Black Lava Dukedom was 40 to 50,000 less than the enemy. The Black Lava Nation did not have the advantage in terms of numbers. They wanted to attack, but they were powerless. But the king of the Black Lava Nation was ambitious. As his father-in-law, Sauls could not think of a way to defend the Rhine Bridge. Sauls's original plan was to delay the war for a year. Then, according to the rules of the empire, the Black Lava Nation would have a 30-year truce. Of course, Sauls was not helpless. Since the king did not want to tolerate it, he could only fight. Marquis Sauls pointed at the nearest military fortress and said, "The central military fortress has 3 legions and 20,000 chosen ones. It's easy to defend and hard to attack. If we dare to attack, the other 2 fortresses will send reinforcements. But I'm not helpless." For this war, the Black Lava Nation had prepared a total of 1,300 catapults. I would mobilize 300 catapults every day and night. Regardless of how many people they would kill, as long as they could protect these catapults, they would continue to attack for 7 days. At the same time, the other 2 fortresses need to be attacked. When the enemy is exhausted, we'll attack through the night and kill our way into the central fortress. William sighed in his heart. This old man was really stable, even more stable than him. He even knew what Sauls was going to say next. For example, Sauls might pat William's shoulder and say, "Go ahead. The chosen ones of the Dawn mercenary team can be revived. They can definitely delay the reinforcements from the other 2 fortresses. I can also increase the war reward." But was William an idiot who would only seek death? He waved his hand without hesitation and said, "We'll start the war tomorrow. Throw the catapults and increase the war reward. I'll let my men charge the catapults for more than 10 times. If I can stand firm on the top of the wall, you guys can charge." Sauls and the other 2 widened their eyes. Could the chosen ones be sacrificed like this? William raised his eyebrows. Why not? The key was that it would not be a problem if the rewards were sufficient. In particular, the reason why he started the war was because he wanted the players to be able to revive infinitely before they reached level 30. Chapter 155. What was the fighting style of an ancient war? It was a competition of national power and manpower. There are more methods in the magical continent, but there aren't many tricks in version 1.0. There are siege hammers, siege ladders, siege towers, and catapult. It's not too awesome for the middle-level mages to become big mages. William's method of slamming the door wasn't useless in front of these enchanted steel doors. It was just that the consumption was too great. Normally, it would take at least 3 level 60 iron dolls and an epic helmet to break through these doors. William narrowed his eyes. He was secretly building a troll army. There were more than 20 trolls, and their leader was Bloody Crusher. But he didn't want to waste those powerful trolls in a place like this. He had used a trick to make them trolls with epic bloodline. Their combat power had increased tremendously, and they were extremely powerful. Now, William had 60,000 suicidal soldiers. As long as he gave them sufficient rewards, they would be his trump card in attacking the city. If he could avoid using the trolls, he would keep them. The war in version 1.0 was just child's play. The darkness invasion in version 2.0 would truly threaten the city of Dawn. The next morning, after breakfast, the Black Lava Army sent out half of the soldiers from the Rhine River camp. There were 2 legions in front and 2 legions on the sides of the catapult. The only 2 cavalry legions of the Black Lava Dukedom protected the flanks to prevent the enemy from sending out cavalry. It had to be said that the 2 dukedoms had very few cavalries. To the small dukedoms, the cavalries were not only the soldiers and horses, but also the equipment costs were too high. The annual maintenance costs were also high. What about the magical beast? Everyone treated them as precious items. Unless they were in a desperate situation, no one would use them. The players' legion led by William had changed greatly. Chuliocchio was once again the commander. He divided the 60,000 players into 4 legions. Among them were the shield-bearers, a small number of priests without holy light, and a group of horseless knights. They formed the 14,000 Tough Man Legion. The warriors, swordsmen, and a small number of fighters who did not use shields formed the 21,000 Macho Legion. The rangers and hunters formed the 17,000 Explosive Shot Legion. There were almost 6,000 mages, wizards, and spellcasters in the Fireworks Corps. Originally, there were a lot of players who liked mages, but ever since the launch of the game, the number of mages players had plummeted. Now, those who could still play as mages were planning to play until the very end. As for the remaining 2,000 assassins, they could go wherever they wanted. In Chu Liuchio's words, whether you're strong or not is a matter of the version. Version 1.0 has only been released for a month, and you're still at the beginner level. You have no skills, no damage, and your skin is thin. If you charge forward, you'll just be sending yourselves to death. Why don't you just give everyone a roar and cheer them on? The assassin players were infuriated. Even mages had an army, so why didn't they have one? That's right. Can those magic-type brothers throw fireballs at the city walls, or can they use their wits to punch a hole in the city walls? Chu Liuchio shrugged and said, the Fireworks Legion naturally uses fireworks. Whether it's fireballs, ice arrows, or other long-range skills, it's all up to fate. I don't think they'll hit anyone. As for why they can form an army, it's because they have more people. The assassin players were unhappy. Captain Chu Liuchio had no choice but to throw them into the Macho Legion and let them follow the warriors to send themselves to death. This military fortress was built more than 100 years ago. It was 21 meters tall and shockingly thick. As it was built a long time ago, the surface of the city walls was covered with layers of molten iron. The thickness of the molten iron alone could reach up to 30 centimeters. This meant that it was difficult for the catapults to destroy the city walls. If the catapults wanted to smash into the city, they would be attacked by the catapults in the city. Perhaps many people did not feel much about 21 meters tall, but in the real world, it was as tall as a 5 to 6-story building. Fortunately, this was a magical fantasy world. The siege ladders could be longer and sturdier. The professionals carrying the siege ladders were also very strong, so they did not feel too heavy. The black mass of the army was 2,000 meters away from the military fortress. There were 2 black lava legions in front, and the players were on both sides. As for the 2 black lava legions at the back, they were in charge of protecting the large number of catapults as they slowly advanced. One of the small catapults was pushed forward, and it threw a stone that weighed about 100 kilograms. A crisp sound was heard. Whoosh! The stone whistled and landed 900 meters in front of the fortress. The group of players was confused, but no one paid attention to them right now. Marquis Sauls rode on a warhorse that had the bloodline of a magical beast. He pulled out his sword and continued to advance until the stone from the catapult hit the city walls. The army then stopped moving. They were in formation. The players of the Iron Nation stood on the city walls and looked down. When they saw the black mass of the army, their legs trembled. Gosh, there are too many catapults in the Black Lava Nation. We have less than 80 catapults in our fortress. We can't fight them at all. Someone complained. There were many players in the Iron Nation, but they could not all guard one military fortress. Each of the 3 military fortresses had about 30,000 players to support the regular legions in defending the city. When they saw that the Black Lava Nation was about to attack, they panicked. However, when a group of people walked up the city walls, the players of the Iron Nation felt more at ease. There was a legendary boss and 6 epic bosses. Are they only going to use the catapults to exhaust us? The legendary boss Wales frowned and wanted to say something. The 300 catapults of the Black Lava Nation fired at the same time. Flaming rocks rained down like a meteor shower, bringing with them a destructive aura. Pom, 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 pom. The crashing sounds were deafening, and the tremors reverberated throughout the fortress. Many people were terrified. Apart from the city walls that remained unscathed, The other buildings and even some of the soldiers on top of the city walls couldn't withstand the huge impact. Large holes were formed everywhere. The power of the catapults was unstoppable. Even Wales had to dodge. He shouted, "Counterattack!" Then, the players of the Black Lava Nation saw huge stones flying out from the fortress. William narrowed his eyes. Dawn Mercenary Team, charge. Chuliochio was slightly stunned. He glanced at the catapults above his head. Were they going to launch the attacks? However, he ordered his men to raise the flag and shouted, "Attack the fortress!" The war drums sounded. The bugle horn sounded. The sounds of killing filled the entire battlefield. The players did not care about the catapult. The moment they heard the war drums, they ran with excitement. They were like a torrent of steel as they charged towards the military fortress. Their fearlessness attracted the attention of many NPCs. William took a deep breath. He tore off his long robe, and 2 thunder blades appeared in his hands. Electric currents surrounded his body as he walked forward. Meanwhile, with every step he took, thunder and lightning would descend from the clouds. When he neared the city walls, his body transformed into dazzling lightning. The players saw him charging up the city walls. Rumble! Tens of lightning bolts descended from the sky. The surrounding enemies were charred black. Chapter 156. 2 epic thunder blades formed a special set effect. Fury of Thunder. Within a radius of 10 meters, 7 to 9 thunderbolts will strike every 5 seconds and cause 300 plus, thunder attribute x 180%, damage to the enemy. Prerequisite. Have thunder attribute. Prerequisite. Activate Battle Energy Shield. Wales saw that the Lord of the City of Dawn wanted to stand firm on the city wall, so he did not give him a chance. As an Earth attribute shield warrior, he leaped up and slashed his brown sword at the Lord's head. William raised both of his swords. The moment the sword light dissipated, he rammed his shoulder into Wales. Bang! Wales used his shield to block in front of him. He easily deflected the force and took a step back. He swung his sword with his right hand and glared at William. "You can't stand firm on the city wall alone, right? Can't I just hold you back?" William watched as the players of the City of Dawn died. After a wave of shield warriors fell, the next wave of shield warriors activated their battle energy shields and charged forward. But it was difficult for them to appear on the city wall. But they were charging against the catapults, so the enemy could not dodge the stones. Huge rocks smashed into the city walls one after another, leaving behind only mangled flesh and broken limbs. This was a brutal war of attrition. The Iron Nation players wanted to defend the city, while the NPCs went down to conserve their troop. But the key was that the Iron Nation players had no say. Gurdanasis allowed them to join the camp, and even formed a legion of chosen ones. He even made a few guild leaders the legion commanders, but they had to obey the orders of the other legion commanders. William glanced at Wales, who was very difficult to kill. He was a shield warrior with earth attributes. Not only was his battle energy shield strong, but his health was also very high. Both of them fought on the city wall. Their attacks were powerful, and the area within a radius of 10 meters was engulfed in battle energy. No one dared to interfere. The 6 epic NPCs of the Black Lava Nation did not help Wales. Instead, they wandered on the city wall and killed the players who had just rushed up. The Grand Deity team consisted of 20 players, and all of them had gold equipment. When Lucky Dream and his companions rushed up the city wall, they encountered an epic NPC who had turned his head. Damn! Lucky Dream did not hesitate to jump. He might not die if he jumped, but he would definitely die if he did not. Swish! Sword energy swept across. Lucky Dream, who was still in the air, was instantly killed. Half of the other members managed to escape, while the rest were killed. Even if current players wore epic set equipment, they wouldn't be a match for an intermediate epic NPC. Commander Chu Liuqiu didn't participate in the battle. He watched from afar as the players turned into white light on the city wall. He frowned slightly. The NPCs are too intelligent. They're using us as cannon fodder. The party leader of Golden Era did not leave either. Forever Alone pointed at Lautner and the others and chuckled. It's good enough that His Highness is following us. It's not time for the other experts to act yet. In recent years, the games have become more and more realistic. I heard from the grapevine that the Mainframe of Gods should be the latest product that the 5 major countries have researched together. This is really interesting. This seems to be the first time the 5 major countries have researched something new together, right? Yes, Gods is just a test product of the mainframe. Its main purpose is to test the limits of the mainframe. That's why the NPCs in this game are so smart. I didn't expect this game to be so realistic. Chulyocho sighed. Just as he was about to say something, he realized that the cavalrymen on both sides sounded the alarm. The flag of the Black Lava Nation was raised high. The 2 legions behind them got into formation. The 2 legions raised their heads and looked at the 2 sides. They realized that there were 4 legions attacking from each side of the Iron Nation. The Black Lava Nation's cavalrymen were fighting against them. However, there were still 2 legions charging towards the catapult. They wanted to destroy these siege weapons. However, at this moment, the 2 Black Lava Nation legions in front suddenly charged forward. They didn't care about the battle happening near the catapults at the back. However, one of the figures caught everyone's attention. Diablo, who was beside the commander, carried his spear and charged into the enemy legion like a cannonball. With lightning speed, he opened up a path of blood. The spear emitted golden light. He slammed his left hand on the ground. Rumble! Metal storm! The metal particles hidden in the ground were summoned and formed a storm that tore dozens of enemies into pieces. At the same time, an Iron Nation Legion commander leaped up and slashed at Diablo with a sword that was a few meters long. However, Diablo leaned back and threw his spear. The spear pierced through the sword and pierced the chest of the Legion commander. The Legion commander was sent flying back tens of meters. In an instant, Diablo tore through the Legion like a ferocious beast. The moment he landed, he pulled out his spear and pierced the Legion commander's head. Then, he raised his head high. In an instant, the Legion was almost routed. It was the ability of a top legendary boss to kill the enemy commander amidst tens of thousands of enemies. Many players were dumbfounded. They were in disbelief. How could this boss be so powerful? While William was fighting with Wales, he had the time to glance at Diablo. Diablo was the true leader of the battlefield. He had legendary bloodline, a legendary close combat hidden occupation, and a legendary mage hidden occupation. All of them had metal attribute. In addition, he was equipped with epic equipment. He was one of the strongest bosses in version 1.0. He was not weaker than William. When the Black Lava Nation was about to be destroyed, Diablo guarded the city gate alone for 3 hours and killed tens of thousands of enemies. Then, Augustine seized the opportunity to kill him. Diablo's background was also very interesting. It was rumored that he was not a citizen of the Black Lava Nation. He was an unlucky person who had fled to the Black Lava Nation when he was a teenager. During one of his hunts, Marquis Sauls saw Diablo killing magical beasts with his bare hands. At that time, Diablo was wearing animal skin and clothing. He looked like a wild child. Many of the nobles saw this savage and planned to treat him as prey. However, Marquis Sauls was a person who cherished talent. He brought Diablo along and nurtured him. After a few years, Diablo grew stronger and stronger, and he became famous in the Black Lava Dukedom. Sauls even paid a huge price to forge an epic set equipment for him. He even helped Diablo get rid of his slave status and gradually become a count. It was simple. Diablo was a count, but he was also a vassal. But he was really ferocious. Wales took a deep breath. He had also recognized Diablo, who was rather famous, but he had never expected him to be able to charge into the army alone, and even cause such great destruction. The city lord noticed that the enemy had let his guard down and immediately swept his sword. Wales lowered his head to evade the attack. The sword energy that was like a full moon swept past his head and cut off a few strands of his long hair. Diablo raised his head and sneered. He did not retreat. Instead, he advanced. His shield glowed and suddenly turned into a huge brown shield. He swatted William away like a mosquito. Just as William was about to fall onto the city wall, a huge soul hand suddenly stretched out and grabbed Wales. In the end, the voice of failure appeared in William's mind. He smashed a few unlucky players to death. Then, he stood up and rushed up the city wall again. It was obvious that William wanted to be smashed away. It was a pity that his soul hand was useless against Wales. Meanwhile, Lautner and the rest followed the regular army and rushed up the city wall. Chapter 157. The Lord of the City of Dawn charged up the city wall unscathed. The tremors from the battle between him and Wales spread in all directions. Streams of Do-Chi shot out in all directions, and an arrow tower was smashed into pieces by the two of them. The tower fell to the ground with a rumbling sound, and a group of soldiers passing by were turned into meat paste. The more the two fought, the fiercer they became. Almost all the players and NPCs in their path were either injured or sent flying off the city walls. Meanwhile, under the leadership of the epic-ranked legion leader, the two regular legions of the Black Lava Nation charged up the city walls. The four epic bosses, Lautner, Legolas, Albert, and Alec, faced the rain of arrows and rushed to the top of the city wall. The battle between epic NPCs instantly cleared out an empty space on the city wall. Lautner was exceptionally ferocious in both melee and ranged combat. He chased after an epic-ranked expert relentlessly. He might not be able to kill them for the time being, but he would definitely be able to stall them. Albert began to transform the moment he stepped onto the city wall. His body kept expanding, and he became extremely tall. His golden eyes shone with a fierce light, and his aura was terrifying. He was like a human-shaped Tyrannosaurus. Engulfed in flames, he sent several shield-bearers in front of him flying with a flaming saber. The shield-bearers wailed as they fell into the city. Perhaps the dragon's blood had made him even more reckless, but he leaped into the city and headed straight for the commander flag. Fiery red sword light filled the sky, and swathes of players who had just revived were hacked to death, continuously turning into white light. After being revived, they continued to die in battle. Their equipment kept dropping, and they did not even have the chance to pick it up, but Albert really wanted to say, "It's not me, I don't want to do this, it's clearly the leader who forced me to do it." Legolas was agile. He quickly climbed up an arrow tower and shot 3 of the controllers dead. He turned around, narrowed his eyes, and aimed his bow at a group of enemies on the stairs. The latter had just reacted. 9 chi arrows were shot out. 9 figures were pinned to the wall, each with an arrow stuck in their head, the tail of the arrow still buzzing. As for the only assassin among the 4, Alec also jumped into the city the moment he reached the city wall, disappearing from everyone's sight. He had another mission. Rocks were streaking across the sky all the time. Arrows rained down from the sky. The Do-Chi from both sides collided like resplendent fireworks. Both sides were sacrificing their lives for this siege. Both sides were desperately fighting for control of the city wall. All of a sudden, large sections of the city walls were seized by the Black Lava Nation, and the military fortress was on the verge of collapse. When Changli Jyoga climbed up the city wall for the 3rd time, he was faced with a row of shield warriors. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. No one would even consider whether or not you were a pro player. GTMD. The sounds of killing rose. A group of shield warriors suddenly surrounded Changli Jyoga. Bang! Xiao Ayan walked out from behind and charged forward with her shield as well. She knocked away a few shield warriors who were not well equipped and helped Changli Jyoga out of his predicament. Then, she raised her eyebrows proudly and led a dozen professional players and many elite players to fight against the players of Iron Steel. Wales looked at the city walls that were about to be occupied by the enemy and was very anxious. But how could he have imagined that not only did the enemy in the wilderness defend the catapults, but they were also so fierce? In particular, Diablo's combat power was monstrous. He was like a war machine. Mn, if Augustine hadn't died in battle, how could there be such a huge gap in the high-end combat power? Wales cursed. The battle was about to be over. He thought that he could stall for a few days and cause some damage to the Black Lava Nation before pretending to retreat, but it turned out to be like this. The middle-level mages aren't scary, but the close combat mages are equally powerful. William knew that he could not kill Wales in this situation. Hence, he continued to stall for time so that the allies behind him could have a chance. Diablo single-handedly stopped half of the legion. A group of people wielded their shields and surrounded him. He clenched his left hand, and metal elements rapidly condensed into a dozen spears. Bang! The spears shot out in all directions, and the group of people was once again pierced like candied haws. A single person was equivalent to an entire army. A true legendary boss was that ferocious. It could be said that, whether it was William, Augustine, or the others, they were not as good as Diablo in group combat. This was because the other people had chosen magic occupations that could support them. For example, William's Saint Soul magic seemed to be of legendary quality, but it was not very effective in a short period of time. Another example was Augustine's fire magic. It had great destructive power in a one-on-one fight, but it was not effective in a group fight. Diablo's suboccupation was called Metal Rush. It was also a legendary quality magic, but it did not have any support function. It could be summed up in one word, and that was to fight. William was not a veteran in a group fight. In a one-on-one fight, other than when he encountered a meat shield, he was quite powerful. His current attitude towards Wales was to stall for time. But this meat shield was always distracted. He thought that he did not care about William just because he could take hit. This infuriated William. Thunder consecutive slashes. Swish, swish, swish. 9 streaks of thunder sword energy shot towards Wales. Wales narrowed his eyes in disdain. He tightly gripped his shield that was condensed with light and blocked all the attacks. But just as he was about to counterattack, a ghost arrow pierced through his battle energy and shield, and pierced straight into his chest. Pfff. Wales spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. He felt something piercing his chest and causing a slight explosion. Even so, it made him feel as if his internal organs had been shaken into meat paste. Wales glared fiercely at William. Then, he turned his head and chose to flee. It was not that his injuries were serious, but he was afraid that William would play some tricks. If William really left him here, he would be in deep trouble. Augustine was a top-notch expert in the Iron Nation. They had sparred before. Since William had the ability to kill Augustine, it did not mean that William did not have the ability to kill Wales. The war had just begun. Moreover, this military fortress was originally going to be given to the Black Lava Nation. As soon as Wales shouted, someone blew the horn of retreat. The 3 legions of the Iron Nation did not suffer too many losses. Only 2,000 of them died in battle. Most of the casualties were the players who did not care about their own safety. The legion commanders led the remaining troops and retreated from the back of the city gate. But only half of the 30,000 players chose to retreat. It was because Albert was guarding the revival point. Many players died over and over again. All their equipment was destroyed. This infuriated some players. They risked their lives to slash at Albert. Many Black Lava Nation players were at a loss when they saw this scene. It was the first time that an epic boss was guarding the revival point of the players, but they were prepared. Once the commander flag of the enemy disappeared, they would snatch the equipment. That was right. The ground was filled with tens of thousands of equipment. There was no reason not to snatch it. Even the eyes of professional players like Forever Alone and Chu Liuqiu lit up. William glanced at the quick-witted Albert and rushed into the military warehouse. He was slightly relieved when he discovered that Alec was guarding the warehouse. Chapter 158. Siege. The battle to occupy the military fortress of the Iron Nation. Difficulty: B+, mission completion, 55% reward, 65,000 experience. Remarks: as a mercenary leader, you have mastered the art of letting your subordinates kill themselves. Lautner's eyes were burning as he said, "I'm rich." Alec's purpose in entering the fortress was not to kill people. The key was to guard the military warehouse. The equipment and resources inside were the most important. In the faction wars of this era, everyone had the intention of breaking a jar. If the military resources could not be transported in time, they would definitely be burned. They would rather die than leave a grain of food for the enemy. William walked past the corpses at the entrance of the warehouse and patted Alec's shoulder. He looked at the resources inside and could not help but sigh. "Have you checked? It's not a lot, but it shouldn't be so little. There are about 100,000 arrows, 200 sets of spare parts for the catapults, 3,000 sets of excellent quality armor and weapons, and so on. As for the heavy-duty crossbows and catapults, they are placed on the city walls. I've guarded the military warehouse, but the granary has been burned down." Alec scratched his head in embarrassment. "Send people to put out the fire. Leave as much food as you can." "Yes, sir." As the vanguard, William had the right to share the spoils of war. At this moment, Violent Dragon hurried over. Ever since the defenders of the military fortress had retreated, the enemies who had attacked the catapults had also retreated. The army had officially moved into the military fortress. TSK, the warehouse has not been burned down. We're really lucky." Violent Dragon looked at the resources in the warehouse happily. He was indescribably happy. William looked at the warehouse thoughtfully. According to logic, during a war, there should not be so few things in the warehouse, but he did not say it out loud. He only glanced at Violent Dragon and said, "I have half." I know. The commander told me that your mercenaries have sacrificed a lot. It's not a big deal to give you half." Violent Dragon's gaze was slightly teasing. Could it be that William could move the things away? The prince touched the ring on his hand. He did not want to reveal that he had a super-large space treasure for the time being. In particular, when he looked at the players outside the door, he knew that the players had sacrificed a lot. Although they had also obtained a lot of experience after occupying the military fortress, many of their equipment had been destroyed. They had robbed a lot of equipment, but it was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. He turned around and said loudly, "You can receive your rewards according to your contributions for the half of the supplies I've received today." "What the F***ck?" T-Rex's mouth twitched. The players looked at each other in disbelief. Were the rewards that good? Before they attacked the city, they had received a mission which indicated that there would be rich rewards. But this was half a military warehouse's worth of resources. William narrowed his eyes. To him, these resources were just small profits. How could his ambition be contained in a warehouse? What he wanted to control were the two human nations. "Only half of the armor and arrows are not of much use to me." William was not interested in the heavy armor of the Iron Nation. He preferred the streamlined armor of the Dawn. Even if these items were brought back, they would have to be reforged. It would be a waste of time and materials, so it would be better to hand them over to the players. William said that they would be rewarded according to their contributions, but William distributed the resources according to the output ranking and death ranking. He strived to ensure that the players would not lack blue equipment. At the very least, their equipment would not be inferior to that of the iron and steel players. "I died 6 times. Not only did I drop a level, but I also dropped 3 pieces of equipment. I thought that I would definitely suffer a loss. I didn't expect the rewards to be so good. I leveled up on my original foundation and got 2 pieces of blue equipment." A player looked at his blue equipment happily. He was very excited. After all, He originally had white equipment. There were too many rich people in the City of Dawn. It could even be said that, if it could be divided into 3 regions, the number of rich players in the City of Dawn was several times more than that of the Black Lava Nation and the Iron and Steel Nation. Just like the members of the Grand Deity Party, they collected contribution points and gold coins every day. Many players sold their hard-earned money for the sake of RMB, which resulted in their equipment not being very good. They did not expect that they would be able to earn money from the war. Forever alone was carrying big and small bags full of equipment. There were many people like him. They gathered together, afraid that they would be killed by other players of the same camp. It was this group of people who had robbed the enemy players of their equipment at the resurrection point. They were all very rich and had 2 or 3 sets of equipment. Chu Liuqiu glanced at Chongli Jioga. Chongli Jioga nodded and ran to William's side. Your Highness, we robbed some equipment from the enemy. The quality is not bad. Do you want it? William pondered for 2 seconds. There were people selling equipment to him? But he thought for a while and nodded. I can exchange the equipment for contribution points of the same value. Chongli Jioga hesitated slightly. That's good too. In an instant, players with extra equipment came forward and exchanged their equipment for contribution points. Although they did not exchange them for gold coins, to the players of the City of Dawn, contribution points were very valuable. Not only could they be used as gold coins, but they could also be used to promote their positions. Even more players who lacked equipment gathered in front of them and used their contribution points to exchange for the equipment. William did not buy the equipment at a low level and sell it at a high price. He was only a middleman. After all, he did not want to cheat the players of their contribution points. The situation was not good. The Iron Nation's call for freedom had attracted many new and old players to join their camp. William had to give them enough benefits to make them loyal to the City of Dawn. The Legion commander of the Iron Nation, Kainer, smiled faintly. Does this mean that the Black Lava Nation has conquered a city? Wales was half-naked, revealing his strong muscles. He touched the wound on his chest and narrowed his eyes. That's right. I wanted to delay for a few more days and cause some losses to the Black Lava Nation. But I was held back by the City of Dawn Lord. Fortunately, my plan of giving the city should not be exposed. I also placed a lot of equipment in the warehouse. In order to let them occupy the fortress, I specially sent out thousands of soldiers. Now, the Black Lava Nation has sent 6 legions into the fortress, including 60,000 mercenaries from the City of Dawn. Did Sauls enter the fortress? According to the scouts, Sauls did not enter the fortress. Instead, he returned to the camp at the Rhine River. Wales sighed. This old fellow was cunning and full of tricks. In his eyes, this military fortress was not even as good as a temporary military camp. Kainer thought for a while. We don't have to wait any longer. The entire army will attack in 3 days. The entire army? Wales was taken aback. There are a total of 15 legions in Rhine City and the 2 military fortresses. This is enough. The enemy will definitely know about the deployment of troops in other places. Since they have fallen into the trap, there is no need to delay any further. Send out 6 legions to cut off the route between the fortress and the Rhine River camp. The remaining 9 legions and the chosen ones will destroy everyone in the central fortress. If there is a chance, kill that D*Ned Lord of the City of Dawn. There is no need to delay this war for too long. Without the mercenaries from the City of Dawn, what is the Black Lava Nation? Kainer laughed coldly. He did not know what benefits the Mercenary Guild's envoy, Roderick, had received to protect William's identity as a mercenary. But even so, what could he do? The Iron Nation would give William face and call him prince. If they did not give him face, they would kill him. Would the Blackleaf royal family take revenge for a half-elf? A half-elf with the royal bloodline of the Blackleaf royal family. Kainer thought for a long time. He believed that William was a chess piece of the Blackleaf elves. If William became stronger and walked out of the Blackleaf Forest, he would gain a foothold in the human nation. This would be beneficial to the Blackleaf Elves. But if he died, it was not a big deal. He was just a chess piece. Chapter 159. After the Black Lava Nation occupied the military fortress, they investigated the inside and outside several times. They did not find any secret tunnels left behind by the enemy. Even the burned granary was cleared and carefully investigated. In the following 2 days, the Black Lava Nation constantly repaired and strengthened the city walls and arrow towers. They even transported some heavy-duty crossbows and catapults. They planned to use this place as a stronghold and send troops to one of the military fortresses. Marquis Sauls did not come personally. Instead, he asked his nation to send more troops. However, the king could only support 6 legions. The remaining legions had to be stationed at the border to prevent the Iron Nation from crossing the river by boat. The Rhine River camp has 8 legions and is 23 kilometers away from us. There are 6 legions in the fortress. A total of 14 legions are in the territory of the Iron Nation. Their reaction is so slow. There must be a trap. Violent Dragon looked at the sand table and pondered. There were 6 legion commanders in the meeting room. One of them laughed and said, "The Iron Nation is not the same as before. Ever since that muddle-headed old man sounded the horn of freedom, there have been many rebellions among the nobles in the Iron Nation. Many military forces have been delayed. My lord, you don't have to worry for now. Why don't you think about which military fortress to attack next?" Violent Dragon did not reply. He just narrowed his eyes and pondered. What gave the Iron Nation such confidence? William sat on the chair and closed his eyes to rest. He did not seem to hear anything. In fact, he was searching for posts on the forum. After some searching, he was almost certain that the Iron Nation's counterattack was near. As expected, they did not put up much resistance and gave up defending the central fortress. Did they want to capture all the vanguard elites of the Black Lava Nation? If the Iron Nation really did that, the Black Lava Nation would definitely lose. William narrowed his eyes. There was no problem with the fortress under their feet. But the 2 fortresses on the left and right each had a tunnel that led to the front of the central fortress. This news was only discovered by the players in version 2.0. At that time, the Iron Nation had to deal with the army of dark creatures and opened the tunnel. They had never used these 2 tunnels before. From then on, there were players who continuously revealed where the Iron Nation had tunnels. In the end, a total of 5 tunnels were dug by the players. From then on, the Iron Nation was jokingly called the Road Nation by the players. However, this also proved that the previous kings of the Iron Nation were not idiots. They had long been on guard against the attack of the Black Lava Nation. Perhaps in a few days, several legions will rush out from the 2 tunnels and block the reinforcements from the Black Lava Dukedom. The many legions from Rhine City will use the advantage of surrounding the city to use the catapults to smash this military fortress into pieces. William inhaled a cold breath. That's right. As long as we can block the reinforcements from the Black Lava Nation, this city will become a dead city if we don't think of a way to break through. William suddenly stood up. Rampaging Dragon glanced at him, thinking that he had something to say. In the end, the prince just chuckled, shook his head and left. He would never tell T-Rex about this. He only needed to tell Rampaging Dragon that he had to break out of the encirclement at the crucial moment and not put up any pointless resistance. Then, most of the elites from both sides would be exhausted. As for how many people would die on both sides, William did not care. The lesser the military strength of the 2 nations, the more he wanted to see. Otherwise, his plan would not be able to proceed, and Marquis Chris would not have the chance to carry out his plan. Only when the 2 nations had a blood feud and the royal guards had been sent out would it be time for William to end his reign. Time passed. A day later, the Black Lava Nation had received news that the Rhine City army had set out. Although the players of the Iron Nation were united, Some of them could not help but spread the news on the forum that the Iron Nation army had entered the tunnels. Those posts had been deleted long ago, but they were still discovered by observant people. When Forever Alone received this news, he wanted to tell William, but they could not find where William and the others were. Chu Liuqiu and the others found Rampaging Dragon and told him about this news. However, he treated it as a rumor and even wanted to kill the players who had spread the rumor. The players of the City of Dawn could only keep their mouths shut and wait anxiously for the arrival of the war. This was something that could not be helped. As the affinity between the players and the Black Lava Nation was not high, and the NPCs did not trust the players, the central fortress was in a predicament. When both sides received the news, Marquis Sauls immediately sent 4 reinforcements to the central fortress, but they were stopped by the 6 legions that had emerged from the tunnels. Both sides were entangled in a fierce battle. At this moment, Rampaging Dragon was dumbfounded. At the same time, William finally walked out. He gestured to the players, who were suffering in silence, to calm them down. Then, he leisurely walked to the city wall. He looked at the orderly Iron Nation army outside the city wall. Together with the large number of players, they gave off an imposing aura as if a dark cloud was pressing down on the city. North, east, and west of the city, the 3 directions of the central fortress were filled with catapults. There were a total of 600 catapults. Even if they had to destroy the fortress, they would use the stones to crush the Black Lava Nation army. Rampaging Dragon was at the side. His face was as black as an African's. He did not even acknowledge William, who was talking to him. The prince was naturally unhappy. He was about to slap Rampaging Dragon. Rampaging Dragon reacted naturally. He raised his muscular arm and blocked William's hand. Then, he turned his head absent-mindedly. With an expression as if someone was plotting against him, he asked, "What do you want?" "I want to *CKU. Rampaging Dragon's expression showed that he had expected this. He immediately took 3 steps back and looked at the man in front of him cautiously. William rolled his eyes. He pointed at the city wall and said, "Have you heard of the encirclement strategy? I'm not an idiot. I know that the reinforcements have been stopped. The north gate seems to be safe, but if we go out, we will definitely be ambushed." Rampaging Dragon nodded. He knew that it was not the time to abandon the city. But if they continued to defend the city, they would definitely be crushed to death. "Are you really an idiot?" William raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean? If you're not a city lord, I would have beaten you up long ago." Rampaging Dragon was very angry. He regretted not listening to the advice of the Chosen Ones. "I'm telling you clearly. My Chosen Ones have just told me that the reinforcements will definitely not be able to break through the defense line within 3 days. If we don't think of a way to break through within these 3 days, we will definitely die." William pointed at the 3 lines of soldiers. He stopped his finger on the line of soldiers of the Iron Nation players and said in a deep voice, "Kill your way out now. Don't wait for them to completely surround the city before charging out. Otherwise, when the soldiers are exhausted, all of you will die here." "What do you mean, all of you will die here?" The corners of Rampaging Dragon's mouth twitched. This dragon slayer was a coward. When he saw that the situation was not good, he wanted to abandon his subordinates and escape, but Rampaging Dragon thought for a full 5 minutes before he decided to believe the Chosen Ones. Or rather, he was more willing to believe William's words. Hence, when the Iron Nation threw the first stone, the 90,000 players of the Iron Nation charged as the vanguard. A trail of smoke was ignited, and the entire city was burning. The people of the Iron Nation knew that things were not going well. As expected, the charging east gate of the Iron Nation players was wide open. William took the lead. He was like a violent magical beast as he tore apart the formation of the Iron Nation players. In a short period of time, he pierced through the 1,000-meter army of players. Behind him, His 500 bodyguards, Lautner, and the rest led the players of the City of Dawn and charged forward with irresistible force. In an instant, the 90,000 Iron Nation players were defeated. They had encountered the strongest super boss team in version 1.0. Meanwhile, the Black Lava Legion opened the south gate and charged towards the Rhine River. The Black Lava Legion has abandoned the city. Don't care about the chosen ones. Immediately chase after the 6 legions of the Black Lava Legion. Don't let them charge towards the Rhine River. Kaner cursed. There was indeed an ambush at the south gate, but there was only 1 legion. They were there to encircle the defeated soldiers. He did not expect that the Black Lava Legion would not even fight. Instead, they burned the entire fortress and ran away. When the players of the Iron Nation saw the regular army chasing after the Black Lava Legion, they looked at the Lord of the City of Dawn, who was filled with killing intent. Their hearts turned cold. They had been abandoned. They were finished. Chapter 160. At that time, William had discussed with Violent Dragon that they would split into 2 groups. The former would lead the army to attack the 90,000 chosen ones. The latter led the Black Lava Legion to attack the south gate, which did not seem to be ambushed, and tried to find a way to meet up with the reinforcements. However, he did not expect to be ambushed by a legion not long after he left the south city gate. But what was even more awesome was, the enemy legion commander saw that they outnumbered the Black Lava army by 6 times and did not dare to make a move. He only dared to attack the rear of the Black Lava army when the Steel Cavalry Legion caught up. Violent Dragon did not hesitate in the slightest when faced with such a situation. He immediately cut off one of the legions and had them block the pursuers from behind. However, within a short period of time, the Iron Nation's elite army was also in hot pursuit. They went around the army that had started the battle. They would rather die than catch up to the 5 armies led by the Violent Dragon. Kaner did not have the time to care about William. He knew that even if William wanted to escape, he would not be able to catch up. As for his own player army, since he could come back from the dead, then he should just die first. The most important thing for him to do now was to catch up to Rampaging Dragon and prevent him from meeting up with his reinforcements. Then, he would get rid of them. When William saw that his pursuers did not bother with him, violent thoughts arose in his mind. He looked at the group of noobs in front of him and decisively pulled out 2 thunder blades. He was like a thunder god as he killed his way through the army of players. One thunderous boom after another rang out as players were sent flying by the sword beams, their corpses flying everywhere. Bolts of lightning continued to fall from the sky. Who knew how many players passing by were instantly struck to death? Crackling electric currents ran through a radius of tens of meters. Wherever William passed, he left behind white light and equipment. In a short time, he had penetrated the entire army of Iron Man players. If one looked down from the sky, they would see that the gigantic creature formed by 90,000 players still had a wound that had not healed. Behind him, Lautner, Albert, and the personal guards guarding the flag were also able to suppress their opponents without any pressure. Both sides clashed together, forming 2 distinct black lines that separated the 2 sides from each other. The army of the City of Dawn was in a state of complete suppression. They continuously defeated the enemy's army of players. This was because the level of the players was too low. However, they had to face the highest combat power of the City of Dawn. The 2 weren't even on the same level. Even the weakest among them was over 40 levels apart. Not even a battle aura shield could break. It was also the first time that the Elf Guard's bravery was displayed in front of everyone, and everyone was even more shocked. Kill stealing? Charging without discipline? That didn't exist. There were only 500 of them, but they maintained an orderly and effective attack. Their formation could be said to be perfect, and their vanguard was as neat as a sword. They charged straight into the army of players, and it was a one-sided massacre. They waved their swords in unison. They wouldn't attack enemies in the direction of their comrades, because that would be superfluous. They believed in their comrades and only swung their swords at where they should attack. That was what they should do. The 500 elf guards were like a huge piece of silver metal, flattening all the enemies in front of them. Kill. Iron ladies, have you gone soft? The tycoons of the Grand Deity team laughed. They didn't want to fight with NPCs at all. That way, they wouldn't have any sense of existence. However, if they followed the elf guards, they would be able to fight players. That would be awesome. He might not be able to kill a player with a single slash, but under the suppression of his equipment, he would be able to kill a player in 3 to 5 slashes. His contribution points and ranking were rising rapidly. Lucky Dream's team, which was fully equipped with gold equipment, was like a sharp blade that tore a small hole in the enemy's formation. But similar holes continued to spread like a spider web, and they were everywhere. Forever Alone, Chu Liuqiu, and the rest led the elite players to charge at the forefront. They mercilessly killed the remaining NPCs. They were from different camps. How could they hold back? If they were trapped in the central fortress, would they hope that the enemy would not gamble on the revival point? Unless they were ruthless and chose to revive in the City of Dawn or the Black Rock City. Just you wait. The legendary NPC to you. Tens of thousands of us will report him. I don't believe that we can't deal with him. The players of the Iron Nation were in despair. They had far more people than the Dawn mercenary team, but they had no way of fighting back. Especially the Lord of the City of Dawn. He was an elven prince, a dragon slayer, and a legendary boss. He had brought a group of bosses to slaughter the small accounts. What are you going to report? No one can control the game gods. Lucky Dream smiled disdainfully. He had heard some rumors. The supercomputer jointly developed by the 5 countries was stronger than all the supercomputers in the world, and it was unknown how many times stronger it was. Therefore, they allowed the super-intelligent brain to develop a game, which was God's. From a certain point of view, or from the information he had obtained, the governments of the 5 nations wanted to see how much freedom the game had, how intelligent the NPCs were, and how realistic the game was. Since they wanted to be realistic? How could there be an administrator in a game that was completely controlled by the super-intelligent brain? But why had the game not been advertised on a large scale? The governments seemed to be afraid that the game would be too realistic, or perhaps they were afraid of something else. Therefore, they established an unknown small company and slowly sold the game. The governments were afraid that the game would be too realistic and cause adverse reactions to the players, such as an increase in sudden death. Therefore, they did not advertise the game. The massacre continued. Some players of the Iron Nation stopped reviving at the commander's flag. Instead, they revived in the city. What about the price? They lost levels. They lost 1/3 of their equipment. Damn, everyone, return to the city. There's no point in dying like this. My Freedom Army will fight the City of Dawn to the end. A player shouted. Even if we die, the Freedom Alliance will never fall. No matter how many players there were in the Iron Nation army, they could not deal with such a situation. The army was routed and tens of thousands of players scattered. If they could run, they ran. If they couldn't, they revived and returned to the city. Now, they only hoped that the regular army could suppress the Black Lava army and take revenge for them. The players of the City of Dawn chased after them. They killed as many as they could. In this short period of less than 3 hours, the 90,000 players of the Iron Nation army were defeated. 60 to 70,000 players died. Angry Fatty and the other live broadcasters carefully followed the main army. They tried their best to choose an advantageous position for the live broadcast. Hence, many players who did not participate in the war saw the cruel scene on the live broadcast on the forum. More players also recognized a fact. The NPCs would not show mercy just because you were a player. It was normal for them to kill you. William, who had thousands of players' heads in his hands, slowly stopped in his tracks. He looked mockingly at the fleeing players and laughed coldly. What's the use of reporting me? The players' encampment was massacred. The players failed to slay the dragon and were massacred instead. The players were massacred by the high-level NPCs. TSK. This is normal. It's such a realistic game. Why do you have to seek death? Isn't it normal to massacre all of you? William put away the thunder blade and thought to himself. I'm doing this for your own good. I'm giving you a warning. I'm not doing this for the experience gained from killing you. The experience gained from killing those who are 40 levels lower than me is really little. William complained. He looked towards the east. There was a military fortress tens of kilometers away. He believed that there would be soldiers guarding it. But the Iron Nation army was chasing after the Black Lava Legion. There were definitely very few soldiers guarding it. He had no reason not to steal the crystals. Hence, he waved his hand and led the group of players to attack the eastern fortress. Meanwhile, the 5 legions led by Violent Dragon were one step too slow. They were entangled by the army of the Iron Nation. An unimaginably bloody battle ensued. Chapter 161. The 5 legions under Violent Dragon, with a total of 15,000 soldiers, were completely entangled. He looked at the left flank. The enemy's 2 cavalry legions were joined together. The vast sea of cavalry had no end in sight. When the cavalry charged, they would form a torrent that could destroy everything. If he led his army to escape now, they would definitely be scattered by the cavalry. The losses would be too great. It was very likely that more than half of the legions would die before they could make it back. But he understood that this was undoubtedly what the pursuing army wanted to see. Violent Dragon clenched his gloves. Then, we can only fight to the death. Fight to the death. A few of his bodyguards who heard his voice echoed in unison. Fight to the death. Half of the legions echoed. Fight to the death. The 15,000 soldiers stopped in their tracks and shouted in unison. Their aura soared to the sky. The winds and clouds changed. Thick magic was emitted continuously. The north wind blew and the Black Lava Nation's commander flag was blown towards the south. The mighty and powerful flag-bearer held onto the flagpole unwaveringly. Formation east-west. Violent Dragon was lazy to use flag signals. His thick battle energy caused his roars to echo throughout the battlefield. The 5 legions' shield-bearers quickly stood up and rushed to the front. They stuck their shields into the ground. Thousands of swords did the same. From afar it looked like a patch of steel thorns. They joined together and formed a straight battle formation. Behind them were their brothers who were holding spears and swords. The army was operating rapidly. In a short period of time, it seemed to have become an indestructible steel fortress. The 2 cavalry legions from Iron Nation did not charge directly. They were waiting until the 8 legions from the north arrived. In less than a few minutes, the rear army arrived. The commander flag at the front of the cavalry legions was raised high and waved downwards. Rumble! The ground was shaking. Very quickly, the tremors increased by hundreds and thousands of times. It was as if a 100-meter-long earth-drilling worm was about to break out of the ground. The rumbling sounds of explosions reverberated in everyone's ears. The shield-bearers who were standing at the front felt that the black shadow in front of them was getting bigger and bigger. It covered their entire field of vision. But they still held onto their shields and swords and widened their eyes to look ahead. The archers' arrows covered the entire sky. But now, their arrows were useless because there were too many enemies. Rampaging Dragon glanced at the legions in the east and north. Those people were not the most important. The most important thing was the heavy cavalry. Hence, he slowly walked past the formation formed by the shield-bearers. He wanted to fight these 6,000 heavy cavalry alone. The 6,000 cavalrymen were all wearing black armor. They were the most elite heavy cavalry of the Iron Nation. They were the kings of the field. Like a black torrent, they charged towards the Black Lava Nation's battle formation with earth-shattering roars and a thunderous force. At that moment, battle chi blossomed. The cavalrymen brandished their swords. The shield-bearer also gripped his shield tightly, and abruptly raised the dagger that was stabbed into the ground. The saber chi was shining. Blood flowed again. The might of the heavy cavalry was unstoppable. They were like black giant dragons, majestically tearing apart the formation of the black lava army. However, no one had expected this to happen. A figure burning with Do Chi forcibly withstood the charge of a warhorse with a force of several thousand jin. T-Rex did not make any unnecessary movements. His feet were planted into the ground, and the soil was up to his knees. Then, he pushed forward with both hands. Rumble! 2 huge flaming hands appeared out of nowhere. One by one, the heavy cavalrymen seemed to have crashed into an iron wall formed by flames. The leading cavalrymen did not manage to shatter it. The warhorses under their feet kicked forward, twisted, and were pushed back, constantly colliding with the countless warhorses behind them. Layers upon layers. The first row of cavalrymen and their warhorses were directly crushed into a pool of flesh and blood. T-Rex's feet that were planted into the ground straightened, but they still dragged out a few meters of dents. The veins on his arms bulged and even ruptured. Blood spurted out. Bang! The flaming hands exploded. Violent waves of air rushed in all directions. For a moment, he actually withstood the charge of the arrow troop single-handedly. But T-Rex, who was equally unwell, retreated more than 10 meters. When the soldiers helped him up, they then saw that the army commander that they were so proud of was actually covered in blood. T-Rex did not care about himself. He pushed away the soldiers beside him and shouted again, "Fight! Fight!" Everyone in the Black Lava Nation roared at the top of their lungs. They looked at the enemies charging from the east and north and brazenly fought together. In just a moment, the battle between both sides had reached its climax. The Iron Nation army charged from 3 sides at the same time. This kind of pressure was unstoppable for the Black Lava Nation. But T-Rex's previous actions had undoubtedly given the Black Lava Nation army an imposing aura. Both sides fought together. Sword radiance, sword energy, and countless arrows rained down on the battlefield. Every second, tens of people died at the front line. Every second, more and more people would fight each other. The Epic Legion commanders had strong combat power. Their battlefields were usually empty. Everywhere they passed, they would be chopped into corpses. This was a real war. This was a war between elite. This was a war between the nations of gods. When William led the army to the military castle in the east, the battle was also recorded by a live broadcast. Broadcasting was not for the sake of leveling up. It was for the sake of popularity. Ever since the City of Dawn and the Black Lava Nation separated, there were broadcasting players who followed them. This scene completely shocked all the players. Angry Fatty regretted his actions. Although the live broadcast of the massacre of the Iron Nation players was enjoyable, it was far from the passion of a regular legion. But the Iron Nation players were rushing as if they were going to attack another fortress. It had to be said. Many players were shocked by this move. Because they didn't have any siege ladders with them, William also had the time to watch the live broadcast. He saw Whales and T-Rex fighting fiercely. The former was legendary while the latter was epic. Both of them were meat shields. T-Rex's endowment was stronger, and his equipment was not weak either. Theoretically, he should be able to fight evenly with Whales, who was not strong. But T-Rex had definitely used a forbidden skill to reduce his attributes for a short period of time. It would be better if he had time to rest. I'm really sorry. William slowly closed the live broadcast. He had no other way to rule the 2 nations. He also had no way to stop the 2 nations from going to war. He could only shorten the year-long war of attrition in his previous life to create enough time for him to expand his army. There is no pure justice in the gods. There is only power and desire in this world. I don't want to die. I don't want to see the City of Dawn being engulfed by darkness. You have to leave first. I'm sorry. William apologized in his heart. He did not repent. He was just sighing. He looked at the sky again. He only wanted to tell the gods. You used the masses as chess pieces. You used countless lives to enjoy the war. You could start a war between gods and devils. But you definitely did not know what was the dusk of the gods. Chapter 162. He didn't die. Violent Dragon didn't die. He didn't die. A player who was watching the live broadcast shouted excitedly, "Oh my God, Diablo saved him. It's that metal god of war. He's very powerful." He tore apart the Legion of the Iron Nation and rescued Violent Dragon from their encirclement. Many people exclaimed in admiration. Some of them even had tears in their eyes. They had not played in the God's world for a long time, but they had witnessed the cruelty of war, as well as the glory and faith of the warriors. When the 5 legions of the Black Lava Nation were in a desperate situation, none of them chose to escape. Instead, they fought head-on. They chose to sacrifice their lives to cause the greatest damage to the enemy. From top to bottom, the Legion commander died at the front line. The deputy Legion commander rushed forward to stop him. The deputy commander died. Then, there were the captains, squad captains, and the last soldier of the Legion. They fought for glory. Violent Dragon did not die. Because he had high health, he fought until the last moment. He stepped on the corpses of his comrades and fought with the enemies. But he did not expect. He was dying. Just as he was about to accompany his soldiers to fight in hell, Diablo killed his way in and took him away, like a dead man. He was dragged away by Diablo. A streamer revived dozens of times and captured the despairing look in T-Rex's eyes. The players who saw this could not imagine how difficult it would be for this admirable man to live alone. When William heard the news, he was expressionless. Although he was happy that Violent Dragon did not die, his focus was not on this. The important thing was that all 5 legions of the Black Lava Nation had perished. The Iron Nation had also lost 1.5 heavy cavalry legions and 3 elite legions. Time passed quickly. They finally arrived at the eastern fortress. There was only 1 legion there. The legion commander was a middle-aged man. He looked at the idiots who did not have siege ladders with a mocking gaze. William did not say anything. He waved his hand, and 30 siege ladders appeared out of thin air. There were only 3 words in the minds of the defending soldiers. Wangdefa? Hence, the war had begun. Or perhaps the war had never stopped. The Dawn players did not need to be commanded. They carried the siege ladders and rushed to the top of the city walls like a black flood. They didn't care about the rocks above their heads, and they didn't care about the sparse arrows. They were like a group of thugs who saw wealth, and they quickly climbed up the city wall with ferocious eyes. William ordered his personal guards to guard the commander's flag. He took a dozen steps forward and used the momentum to climb the siege ladders. Countless players saw him rise from the ground and unleash thunderous sword auras, instantly clearing out the guards on the city walls. Dozens of soldiers were sent flying and crashed heavily to the ground. D*Eminent. The Legion commander charged at William, his sword flashing. William, who was twisting in midair, managed to dodge a few attacks. His battle energy shield was broken, and a deep gash appeared on his chest armor. In particular, the moment he landed on the city wall, several heavy arrows suddenly shot at him from the arrow towers. The enchanted heavy arrows whistled through the air, whistling through the air. William dodged 2 arrows, but his abdomen was still pierced by an arrow, and a huge bloody hole appeared. The epic-level Legion commander laughed coldly. Heavy arrows were not only used to kill enemies, but they were also created to kill powerful individuals. He saw William continuously retreating. His arms expanded, and he infused all his battle energy into his sword. He suddenly slashed upwards, and the long and narrow sword energy sliced through the sturdy city wall. He had already reached William, but William narrowed his eyes, and his dual blades were placed in front of him. His speed suddenly increased, and he faced the sword energy head-on. Boom! Waves of air rushed out in all directions. Subsequently, a figure pounced out from the dust that was filled with battle energy. Both of them crashed into the city like cannonballs. The moment William stood up, 2 blood-stained thunder blades were slowly pulled out from the mangled corpses. At this moment, he was covered in blood as he looked at the surrounding soldiers. He raised his eyebrows. Ding! Clang! He had heard from some sources that the Lord of the City of Dawn did not kill the soldiers who surrendered. They were lucky enough to survive to mine, at the eastern fortress. They were pulled out. Take off the equipment of the captives and bring them back to the City of Dawn. Send them to mine. These fellows are not bad. Remember to send a team of soldiers to watch them. William handed the space ring to Knox and asked him to bring his personal guards back to the City of Dawn. Actually, when the previous fortress had been burnt down, William had used the space ring to sweep it clean. Even the warehouse of this fortress had been swept clean. He did not leave anything for the Black Lava Dukedom. Of course, this awesome operation was seen by the players. Many players were even curious. Was William really the main character of version 1.0? Otherwise, how could he have such a strategic space treasure? But William only wanted to say that as long as he was good enough, nothing was impossible. The 2 large dukedoms definitely had space rings, but they were not as big as his. Who asked him to be good enough with an enchanter. But this operation could only be used in version 1.0. After version 2.0, except for small-scale wars, all military supplies for other wars would be carried by space rings. At that time, the military fortresses would be taller, and almost all of them would be enchanted. The interior space would be bigger, and there would be catapults, cannons, and arrow towers. Other than the military camps, there would be strategic weapons everywhere. There were even many powerful individual weapons that were specially used to restrain the super expert. Now William could fly freely. It was all because the equipment of the small dukedoms was too poor, and the various tools were too poor. Otherwise, even with his legendary bloodline, he would be dead. In the conference hall of Rhine City, Gerda almost roared in anger as he slammed the table and stood up. He looked at the others in disbelief. 12,000 people died in the pursuit and 6,300 people died in the battle to stop the enemy. This is nothing. Because more people died in the Black Lava Dukedom. But now, you are telling me that the Eastern Fortress has been conquered? What does this mean? 2 of the 3 fortresses have been destroyed. What use is the one fortress that we have now? As the commander, Kaner knew that he was at fault. But he had forgotten that the Lord of the City of Dawn had such a strategic space ring. When Gerda saw that Kaner was about to speak, he angrily waved his hand to make him shut up. Gerda coldly said, "Retreat from the Western Fortress. Burn it down and destroy all the military facilities." "Yes, sir. They will not stop. Rhine City cannot be destroyed. I will personally guard this place." Gerda extended his hand in invitation. "At the same time, I have also invited the strongest warrior in the nation, Mr. Lancet." Once he said this, everyone present looked at the slender figure that walked out of the door. It was a middle-aged man who was dressed simply. He only had a long and narrow saber at his waist. Other than that, he did not have anything else on him. He was the only advanced professional in the Iron Nation. His surname was also Iron. He was the younger brother of the current king. Lancet Steele looked at Gerda. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to mock his brother who had been controlled. He wanted to laugh even more. It was not a problem for Rhine City to be besieged. This was the best way to resolve the war quickly. This was a key secret that only the royal family knew. The other 43,000 people were buried in the tunnels. Chapter 163. The 2 nations had never thought that the final battle would come so quickly. In the past, the war would drag on and the catapults would be used to attack the cities. But the chosen ones had descended. In addition, there was a leader of the Dawn Army who always led the charge. This made the war situation accelerate. It was so fast that Nedrick Blackrock, as the ruler of a nation, led the royal guards to the eastern fortress in an ecstatic manner. However, attacking Rhine City was not as simple as imagined. After all, everyone knew that according to the difficulty of attacking, if attacking a military fortress was considered normal, then attacking Rhine City would be a hellish level. The terrain of the Iron Nation fluctuated. There were endless mountain ranges and forests. Rhine City was built neatly between the two great mountains, tightly guarding the most important position. When the entire city was attacked, they only had to defend the eastern city wall. The pressure was not small. All the small cities to the east of Rhine City had been abandoned. All the commoners and slaves had been transferred to the cities to the west of Rhine City, because the hinterland of the Iron Nation was behind Rhine City. For hundreds of years, ever since the Iron Nation had been founded, it had never been attacked. But Rhine City had been continuously reinforced. The eastern city wall was 31 meters high. It was taller than the Iron King City in the hinterland. Because everyone knew that Rhine City was not only the strongest line of defense, but it was also the last line of defense. Time continued to pass. The war seemed to have stopped. But the catapults, heavy-duty crossbows, and legions of the Black Lava Nation continued to attack from afar. In this short interval, the players ran to various places to kill monsters, complete missions, and gain experience. Besides the war of words, there were also some interesting topics on the forum. The players also discovered a problem. Their main storyline mission seemed to be a little fast. This caused them to level up faster than the players from other continents. One of the hot discussion threads was called, "How long can the main storyline mission be played? Who is the protagonist in this version?" The first comment: according to the maps of both sides, the battle in Rhine City is very important. The loser will destroy the city and the nation. It has to be said that the legendary continent is awesome. In a short span of half a month, there have been several wars. The players are going crazy. Look at the players from other continents. The main storyline mission has just begun. Many people are still killing small mermen. The second comment: small mermen are awesome. The third comment: small mermen are awesome. Fourth floor: the inferior manfish is awesome. The fifth floor: ahem, don't interrupt. Also, the inferior manfish was awesome. Don't be a repeater, okay, #N. In that case, the key question was, when did the feud between the Lord of the City of Dawn and the Iron Nation start? I'm a Dawn player myself, and I like to dig into the backstory of the main character in the game. I've been investigating and collecting information for a long time, and I've found a lot of important secrets. The City of Dawn had once fought with the Iron Nation. Firstly, the Iron Nation had once built a military castle on the Dawn Cliff. In the end, His Highness had led an army to uproot the castle. Secondly, the dragon-slaying battle had been initiated by the Iron Nation. His Highness had successfully slain the dragon, unaware of the aureole behind it. Thirdly, I have no intention of slandering Prince William. Please don't criticize me. The Iron Nation had the intention to kill Prince William. They had even sent thousands of spies to the City of Dawn. Their intentions should not be too obvious. Actually, at this point, everyone should understand why His Highness was so fixated on the Iron Nation and kept on tricking him. Naturally, it was because he had been tricked before. Who had provoked whom first? There was no doubt about it. His Highness had only been in the City of Dawn for a year. He had neither the opportunity nor the guts to provoke others. But His Highness had developed the City of Dawn at an exaggerated speed. He must have attracted the attention of the Iron Nation, and they had carried out many assassinations. Then, can I confirm that His Highness is the one who decides how long the main storyline will last? Then, can I confirm that His Highness is the true main character of version 1.0? The next few comments were all attached. There were also videos of him discussing with NPCs. Some of the NPCs mentioned that His Highness had been assassinated. 11th comment: Gosh, Iron Nation is an idiot. I've been to the military castle 30 kilometers east of the cliff. When I followed His Highness to attack the central fortress, I was puzzled. Why are the two locations so similar? Now that Lord Liu has mentioned it, I instantly understand. In conclusion, these B** stars have been exposed. 12th comment. F***ck off. The Iron Nation's Freedom Bugle is an idiot. Omega**. 13th comment. I almost couldn't hold back the 40-meter-long sword in my hand. Be careful of your words. 14th comment. F***ck your Dawn and Black Lava Nation. Our Freedom Alliance will be waiting in Rhine City. If you're not satisfied, come. 15th comment. The post is unfair. F***cku. 16th comment. Don't come to our Dawn version to talk nonsense. A world with battle energy and magic is destined to be dominated by the strong. Your Iron Nation wants to blow the bugle of freedom. If this isn't a conspiracy, then what is? The next few comments were a war of words. When William saw this post, his heart skipped a beat. The exploratory ability of the players could not be underestimated. If these B** stars continued to dig deeper, they would even dig up 8 generations of William's ancestors. I don't care what you're curious about. As long as you don't find out that I'm a player who transmigrated, it doesn't matter. William did not care about this. Based on William's actions in the future, the imaginative players might even suspect that he was a reincarnator. Because there was a saying, there was once a game called Galaxy. In the end versions of the game, the main character Black Star was thought by the players to be a reincarnator, but the players treated it as an official Easter egg. In the Eastern Fortress, many players had missions to do. There were very few players who did not have missions to kill wild monsters. Almost all of them were planting flags. The players who did not participate in the main storyline mission discovered that the City of Dawn was building an arena. It was a large arena that could accommodate tens of thousands of people. Many players expressed their feelings. They did not know if the arena was built for them. However, the arena represented the ranking and the rewards. During this short period of time, some of the pro players were constantly training their individual abilities. 2 days ago, Gods had been selected as one of the professional leagues in the WCG. This made many professional players very excited. There were very few professional teams in Gods. For example, Glory, Prosperity Millennium, and so on. They had to quit because their previous games had reached the end of their lifespan. They had to find another virtual reality game with greater potential. Therefore, they chose the not-so-popular Gods. Since Gods had been selected as a member of the WCG, the clubs that had joined the game in advance would have a great advantage over the professional players who had not joined. But there was not much time for the players to plant flags. On the 71st day of the open beta of Gods, the final battle of more than 200,000 players had begun. Chapter 164. On the eve of the decisive battle, Gerda Nassis led 3,000 royal guards to Rhine City in the name of the Supreme Commander. When the players saw this legendary young man again, many players who joined the Freedom Alliance understood that he was the ruler of the kingdom and the founder of the Freedom Alliance. That was him. He was the man who had sounded the horn of freedom. The appearance of Gerda Nassis brought hope to the players. At the same time, it boosted the morale of the officers who were born as commoners. What was even more shocking was the advanced NPC named Lancet Steele. He was an expert who had surpassed the upper limit of the version. At this moment, Gerda stood on the 30-meter-high city wall and looked down at the endless Black Lava Nation's army. He was deep in thought. The middle-aged man beside him was smiling. He seemed to be reminiscing about a beautiful future. Gerda Nassis turned his head and smiled. "Uncle Lancet, have you thought of something interesting?" "You shouldn't call me uncle. Ever since I tested your bloodline and turned your father into a puppet, you're the king of this nation. We're just your subjects." Lancet raised his eyebrows and glanced at Gerda with twinkling eyes. You're quite daring to allow them to invade Rhine City. After the Lord of the City of Dawn joined the battle as a mercenary team, I had to give up on the long offensive and defensive battles. Nedrick was also ambitious. Why didn't I allow the Iron Nation army to retreat in defeat and let them feel that we can't do it? Gerda opened his arms to embrace the heavens and the earth. His eyes were filled with ambition and hatred. He suddenly turned his head and said emotionlessly, "If William dares to be the vanguard, kill him. I want him dead." "Yes, Your Majesty." Lancet smiled and knelt on one knee. He looked at his nephew in front of him. He felt as though he was looking at his past self. Below the city wall. Some people were looking up at the city wall. Nedrick Blackstone was wearing a set of shiny black armor. His long battle robe dragged on the ground. He stood in front of the tens of thousands of soldiers and closed his eyes to embrace the city wall. After a long time, he heard footsteps and slowly opened his eyes to look at the newcomer. With a smile in his eyes, he said, "You're here. You chopped off one of my disciples' arms. If you can't avenge me, can't I do it myself?" This black-robed middle-aged man had his right hand on the hilt of his sword the entire time, giving off the feeling of a sharp edge piercing one's throat. He looked coldly at Rhine City. Botet lost his right arm. I have already sent him away. I hope that the distance can help him regrow his lost arm. His potential cannot stop here. But we must avenge the loss of his arm. Hander, a high-level warrior from the Black Lava Kingdom. Nedrick looked at Hander, who had already left, his eyes filled with complicated emotions. This middle-aged man was once his father's swordsmanship teacher. His disciple was his sword art teacher. Now Lancet should have appeared, right? He squinted his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He didn't think he would lose. Not only did he trust himself, but he also trusted his ambitious ally. "Do you really think that I don't know anything about your actions?" Nedrick laughed softly and turned his back to Rhine City. He was fearless. The army of the City of Dawn was on the left flank. No one knew how long this final battle would last. But they knew that the entire Gods was paying attention to this epic main storyline war. The foreign players from other continents had not reached this stage, especially since the main storyline missions of different continents were different. Only the European and American players could enjoy a similar war between nations. The players from other continents were participating in the main storyline missions related to the Dark Creatures. Therefore, the foreign players could only go to their forums and secretly watch the live broadcast. They didn't dare to comment on the comments, or else they would be ridiculed. Chu Liuqiu, Forever Alone, Angry Fatty, Chongli Jioga, and a group of guild leaders entered William's tent to participate in an important meeting. There weren't many people in the tent. Legolas, Lautner, and the rest were resting with their eyes closed. The players were also discussing their own matters in low voices. Chu Liuqiu stroked his chin and looked around. He was puzzled. Where is Prince William? Ever since his personal guards returned to the city, he hasn't come over. Is he planning to slack off in this war? I don't know if he's slacking off, but I know that your information network is terrible. Golden Era's Forever Alone, Chu Liuqiu's old rival, looked at Forever Alone and said, "Those personal guards haven't returned, but it's enough that Prince William is back. Do you think that Prince William will leave now? Cut the crap. Our leader is talking about what Her Highness is planning to do in this war. As a mercenary group, we are sandwiched between two dukedoms. No matter what the outcome of this war is, we might be abandoned." Xiao Ian glanced at Forever Alone in disdain. Forever Alone's mouth twitched. Suddenly, he smiled and moved closer to Xiao Ian. "Miss Ian, you're smart. But you know that if the Black Lava Nation doesn't want us, we can go to the City of Dawn. As for what you said, shouldn't it be the NPC's consideration?" Chu Liuqiu pushed Forever Alone's head away. "But we have to pursue our own interests. The NPCs are too intelligent. I'm afraid they'll go back on their words, then, He looked at Forever Alone warily. Let me tell you, don't get too close to Ian. Your golden era is trying to poach players from other teams. Don't you know how many players you've poached from other teams? Your words are so harsh. Changing clubs is voluntary. Do you think I can force you to buy or sell? Forever Alone muttered a few words, then hurriedly sat up straight and stopped talking nonsense. William suddenly lifted the tent flap and strode towards the main seat in the conference room. Prince William! Lord William! William nodded his head nonchalantly as the crowd called him a mess. Then, he glanced at the players in the conference room. They would be a great help in this war. William pondered for a while and said bluntly, "We don't know how long this war will last. Both sides have sufficient resources. Do you have any ideas on how to quickly defeat the enemy?" The conference room was very quiet. After everyone present saw Rhine City, which was sandwiched between two large mountains, they knew that this would be an extremely difficult battle. Using tricks was too difficult. William was just speaking casually. He did not expect them to come up with any ideas. When he saw that no one spoke, he said in a deep voice, "Then we'll follow the Black Lava Nation's method of attrition. Chu Liuqiu, you'll continue to be the commander." Chu Liuqiu was a little surprised when he was called. He quickly stood up and patted his chest. "Yes, Prince William. In the next few days I might leave for a period of time. I hope that you won't disappoint me." William looked at them deeply and left the conference room. This conspiracy that would decide the outcome of the war. This was the key to victory. This was his next move. He wanted to be sure. It was foolproof.